y ningún derecho colectivo está por encima de ello. Los individuos son personas reales. Los colectivos, la sociedad, el pueblo son abstractos. Los individuos tienen sueños, tienen metas, tienen una vida. El pueblo no existe. El pueblo es la sumatoria de individuos. No existe, no es posible hablar de justicia social si pasamos por encima de los derechos individuales. Estas son las ideas que defendemos en Estudiantes por la Libertad. Defendemos la libertad de culto, la libertad de pensamiento, la libertad sexual, la libertad de escoger, porque es nuestra vida y no tenemos por qué sacrificarla por un supuesto bien mayor que no existe. Cada hombre es un propósito en sí mismo. Y eso es lo que nosotros estamos tratando de defender en cada una de nuestras reuniones y centros de pensamiento. Invitamos a todo aquel que defienda la libertad de alguna manera a que participe en nuestras reuniones semanales. Son discusiones sin ningún fin político, no estamos asociados de ninguna manera a ningún candidato, no recibimos subsidios de ningún lado. Simplemente somos estudiantes, somos personas dispuestas a discutir y a defender la libertad. Les dejo con Yaron Brook, él hablará por sí mismo.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you all for coming. Let me start by apologizing that I cannot speak Spanish. It would be nice if I could. So they asked me to introduce myself. So I'm Yaron Brook. I'm the executive director of the Ayn Rand Institute. I was originally born in Israel. I served in the Israeli military. I got my undergraduate degree in civil engineering. I then got an MBA and a PhD in finance at the University of Texas in Austin. And I was a finance professor at Santa Clara University in California. Since 2000, I've been running the Ayn Rand Institute. I'm also the author of a book, Free Market Revolution, which I hope one day will be translated into Spanish and all of you will buy. Okay. So, feel free to jump in with, I'm going to ask you questions. Feel free to jump in with answers. You can answer in Spanish or you can answer in English. He'll translate if you do it in Spanish. Can you guys hear me? Cool. Okay, so if you think about the last 250 years of Western civilization, we'd be running an experiment of what social, political, economic systems work, and what social, political, economic systems don't work. We'd be running an experiment to see what creates wealth, and when I say work, I mean wealth, quality of life, standard of living, life expectancy. So we've tried anything from pretty close as anybody's come, to kind of pure capitalism, and we've gone all the way to pure communism. We've tried everything in between. Almost capitalism. Almost. And the data's in. We know the results. Everybody who has eyes, everybody who can read history, should know the results. When it comes to standard of living, quality of life, wealth, when it comes to income, when it comes to raising the poor out of poverty, capitalism does a better job than any other system by far.
Y cuando ustedes se dan cuenta en las calidades de vida, los estándares de riqueza, se van a dar cuenta de que el capitalismo siempre les ha dado el mayor estándar de beneficios para todos los demás.
When capitalism was tried in the 19th century in the United States and in some parts of Europe, the mass of the population went from, let me ask this, how many people were poor 300 years ago?
¿Cuánta gente fue pobre hace 300 años?
In the world?
En el mundo, aproximadamente.
Almost everywhere.
Almost everybody.
No existía la pobreza, el
There was no
concepto.
poorness.
Yes.
There was no poorness.
There was no poorness, so poorness is not a relative thing.
La pobreza no es así como se la ve.
When you're working 16-hour days in the field,
Cuando trabajan en 10 horas en el campo,
when your children are dying before age 10, over 50% of all children,
cuando el 50% de los niños mueren,
when you can barely feed your family and sometimes you are starving,
cuando no puede alimentar a tu familia, ustedes empiezan.
when your children get no education, when you're stuck, you can't advance in life,
Cuando el niño no tiene nada que hacer y la vida solamente pasa así.
that is poor.
Eso es pobreza.
The rich didn't create the poor. We were born poor. The human race has always been poor. From the beginning of time, we've been poor.
Todos nacimos pobres, somos pobres y hemos sido pobres desde que nacimos.
Indeed, you can graph this. You can do a graph. I'm going to do it in the air since they took mine.
Y sí lo podemos hacer gráficos a través del tiempo.
So this is the graph.
Este es el gráfico.
Income per capita, or wealth per capita. This is a measure of wealth or poverty. 10,000 years ago.
Hace 10 años.
Goes like this. Up a little bit, like the Roman Empire. Down a little bit during the Dark Ages. But it's basically flat, and then it goes like that.
Y después,
Like that. When does it do that?
¿cuándo hace eso? ¿Cuándo sube?
When does it do that?
¿Cuándo sube? By the industrial revolution.
Yeah, Industrial Revolution. So I like, if you have to put a date on when it does that, I like 1776.
Si le van a colocar una fecha, diría 1976.
Two things happened in 1776. One, the United States of America is founded,
Estados Unidos es creado,
which sets the political framework for the Industrial Revolution for capitalism.
que crea el marco de libertad para toda la revolución industrial.
And anybody know which book was published in 1776?
Y que algunos saben que el libro fue publicado en el 76. The Wealth of Nations.
The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. So the first real book on economics, capitalism, and how markets work.
Y con eso empezó el capitalismo y el
So I like 1776, but it's somewhat arbitrary. You could pick any time during that period. The point is that during the 19th century, under capitalism, wealth grew exponentially.
En el siglo XIX, el capitalismo y la riqueza creció exponencialmente.
In ways never seen in human history, ever.
En las maneras que nunca se había visto en la humanidad.
And everybody got better off. So if everybody was poor at the beginning, everybody got better off. Some got better off much faster, some got better off slower, but everybody's life, in terms of wealth and income, got better off.
Todo el mundo mejoró, algunos más rápido que otros, algunos llegaron hasta el tope, otros al medio, algunos más rápidos que otros, pero al final todos mejoraron.
The capitalist economies grew at the fastest rates ever seen in history, including to this day.
Y la economía capitalista creció a un punto que fue muy rápido, incluso hasta ese día.
Life expectancy. What was life expectancy 300 years ago?
¿Cuál era la expectativa de vida hace 300 años? 40 years.
Yeah, 39, 40. Some years it was lower because of a plague. Some years it was a little higher because things were good. But average, about 39, 40.
39, 40, dependiendo si no había una plaga, podría ser un poco más. Usualmente está en ese rango.
By the end of the 19th century, life expectancy was over 60.
Para el final del siglo XIX, la expectativa estaba más de los 60 años.
Today, life expectancy is over 80.
y hoy está sobre los 80.
Pretty good.
Bueno, ¿no?
So we've tried this capitalism during the 19th century. We've tried
Y todos lo intentamos en el 19.
We've tried communism.
Intentamos comunismo.
We've tried it in Russia, and we've tried it in China, and we've tried it in North Korea, and we've tried it in Cuba.
China, Rusia, North Korea.
Maybe we're trying it in Venezuela right now.
Venezuela también.
And what does communism lead to?
¿Y a qué nos lleva el comunismo?
Poverty and death.
Pobreza y muerte.
Nothing else. Poverty and death.
Pobreza y muerte.
Tens of millions of people dying.
Miles de millones de personas muriendo.
In the Soviet Union, maybe up to 100 million people.
Quizá la Unión Soviética, 100 millones de personas.
In Mao's China, between 40 to 60 million people died of starvation.
En China, 40 o 60 millones de personas mueren de hambre.
So we know what communism does, we know what capitalism does, but we've also tried everything in between.
Hemos intentado el capitalismo, hemos intentado el comunismo y también todo lo que ha pasado en el medio.
Some freedom of market, some capitalism, a lot of government, a lot of statism, a lot of capitalism, a little, all the variations of statism and capitalism have been tried in between in all different countries all over the world.
Y lo hemos intentado de todas maneras. Capitalismo extremo, capitalismo liviano, comunismo extremo, comunismo moderado, y lo hemos intentado en todos los países de todo el mundo.
And the data is in.
Y los datos están ahí.
There's a high correlation between the amount of economic freedom you provide and the amount of wealth, prosperity, standard of living, length of life. All the good stuff happens when you get a lot of free markets, and all the bad stuff happens when you have a little bit of free markets.
Y todo eso ocurre cuando usted le da la libertad de un mercado libre. Cuando hay mercado libre hay una correlación entre la expectativa de vida, el nivel de pobreza, el nivel per cápita, y también se da cuenta de que cuando hay muy poca libertad de mercado, hay muy pocos beneficios.
If you think about that graph that we did, that went like that,
Piensa en el gráfico que hicimos.
then that happened in Western Europe and in the United States.
Eso pasó en Western Europe, en los Estados Unidos.
But in Asia, it continued to be flat.
Pero en Asia, continuó siendo-
And then it went up like that.
Y después subió.
And that happened about 30 years ago.
Y eso pasó hace 30 años.
When countries like Taiwan and South Korea,
Cuando
and even China,
países como Sur Corea, Taiwán y China
adopted aspects of a free market.
adoptaron las políticas del mercado libre.
Since that time, over the last 30 years, 800 million people have come out of poverty.
Desde esa fecha, 800 millones de personas han salido de la pobreza.
Instead of starving in China, people now drive Audis.
En vez de morirse de hambre en China, ahora la gente maneja autos.
See how many German cars in Shanghai. It's amazing.
Tuve muchísimos autos de Shanghai.
So, my point really is that if you have eyes and you travel a little bit around the world and you know a little bit about these countries, the success of markets, when they are left free, to the extent that they are left free, should be obvious.
Entonces ustedes pueden ver, cuando ustedes han viajado a millones de países y ven la ventaja de este mercado como ha crecido, se dan cuenta de que gracias a este mercado es que han podido lograr el progreso.
I'll give you one more example.
Un ejemplo más.
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong 70 years ago was a fishing village.
Hace 70 años Hong Kong era un pueblo de pescado.
Today, Hong Kong has 7.5 million people living there.
Hoy Hong Kong tiene 7 millones y medio de personas.
More skyscrapers than New York City.
Más rascacielos que New York.
And a GDP per capita, which is a measure of wealth, equal to the United States.
Un GDP per cápita aproximadamente igual a los Estados Unidos.
What did Hong Kong offer the people, the millions and millions of people who came from all over the world to live there? What did they offer?
¿Qué ofrece Hong Kong a toda la gente del mundo para que ellos vayan a vivir ahí? ¿Qué les ofrece?
Property rights and the rule of law. Property rights and the rule of law.
Libertad en la propiedad y la libertad de ley.
That's it. No safety net, or very little one. No free health care. No free housing. All they offered was an opportunity.
No hay red de seguridad, no hay servicios gratuitos, no hay servicios de casa gratuitos, solamente está ahí, si lo quieren, tómenlo.
And millions of people came from all over Asia to this little place, which is a rock in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing there.
Todo el mundo fue a Hong Kong, ahí, una roca en la mitad de Asia, que no hay nada,
No natural resources.
no hay recursos naturales,
And yet today, because of the freedom, they're as rich as America.
y aún así, por su propia libertad, son iguales o más ricos que América.
So again, free markets, freedom works.
Entonces, eso quiere decir que el mercado libre funciona.
And it's, we'll get it.
Okay. He's asking that most of the criticism by the libertarians that Hong Kong, they have poor people, they just don't show.
Oh, they're very poor people,
Si hay gente muy pobre,
no question.
no, sin duda alguna.
But the poor people in Hong Kong have an opportunity to rise up.
Pero la gente pobre en Hong Kong tiene la oportunidad de salir adelante.
They still come from all over Asia to Hong Kong because the opportunities in Hong Kong are much better than the opportunities in their home countries.
Incluso toda la gente de Asia viene a Hong Kong porque tiene la oportunidad más grande que cualquier otra ciudad en Asia.
And again, on average, GDP per capita, if you take GDP and divide by the number of people, is equal to that of the United States. Everywhere there are poor people.
E incluso el Producto Interno Bruto es aproximadamente igual al de los Estados Unidos. Y aún así, todo el mundo viene llegando.
But these people would rather be poor in Hong Kong, where they have a chance to rise, than poor somewhere else, where they're stuck there forever.
Y esa gente debería ser pobre en Hong Kong, donde tiene una oportunidad para salir adelante, más que ser pobre en cualquier otro lugar.
Capitalism doesn't eradicate poverty on a relative scale.
El capitalismo erradicó la pobreza en un estado relativo.
It makes poor people better off relative to where they were before.
Hace que la gente esté un poco mejor de donde estaba antes.
And it provides opportunities for poor people to rise up as far as they can go,
Y le da la oportunidad a la gente pobre para que suba y vaya hasta donde ellos quieran,
with no limit.
sin límite.
Some of the richest people in Hong Kong today came on little rafts with nothing, and today are billionaires.
La mayoría de gente originaria en Hong Kong llegó a Hong Kong con nada, con una pequeña balsa, y hoy son de las personas más ricas del mundo.
Some of the richest people in America in the 19th century were poor people, and who worked hard, like Rockefeller, like Carnegie. These were poor people who rose up to become the richest people in the world.
Y en América en el siglo XIX mucha gente pobre llegó a Estados Unidos a trabajar. Había mucha gente pobre, como Rockefeller, y de ahí pudieron salir hacia adelante.
With no education,
Sin educación,
just hard work,
solo trabajo
and a lot of smarts. A lot of, I don't know.
Yeah. Sin
Smart.
trabajo no, exacto. Sin trabajo, con trabajo duro y solamente su inteligencia.
So I'm not saying that poverty is going to disappear, particularly if you measure poverty relative. You know, poor people in America, for example, today, people talk about poverty in America.
Y no voy a decir que la pobreza va a desaparecer. Por ejemplo, la gente pobre en América,
87% of poor people in America have air conditioning.
87% de las personas pobres en América tienen
90% of them have a car.
97% tienen un carro.
Over 90% have cell phones.
96% tienen aproximadamente un teléfono celular.
So yeah, they're poor relative to me,
Y son pobres comparados conmigo.
but there's no poverty in America relative to poor in Colombia.
Pero no hay la pobreza igual en Estados Unidos que en Colombia.
Poor means something very different in Colombia and in America.
La pobreza significa algo muy diferente en Estados Unidos y en Colombia.
So, and that's what capitalism generates. It generates the ability of everybody to rise up. It doesn't eliminate inequality. It's not supposed to eliminate inequality. I would argue even it's not good to eliminate inequality.
Y el capitalismo lo que hace es simplemente separar esa brecha. No es el capitalismo que elimine la pobreza, no debería eliminar la pobreza. Simplemente hace que la brecha se separe.
Okay.
Pregunta, question.
Bueno, eso, yo diría que tengo que decir
I have a question.
básicamente el capitalismo,
Basically, capitalism.
muchas veces, o sea, yo lo entiendo como la pobreza es una falta de oportunidades. Es decir, aquí en Colombia, en Latinoamérica, la pobreza no es en lo material, sino en la falta de oportunidades que hay. Y a eso es que viene la crítica, porque muchas veces el sistema capitalista o el libre mercado lo que genera es falta de oportunidades, porque hace que muchas veces los servicios de salud, educación, sean excluyentes para algunos. Entonces, la idea no es que seamos pobres en términos de ingresos, sino en términos de oportunidades.
Capitalism is the only system that creates opportunities for the poor.
Capitalismo es el único sistema que crea oportunidades para los pobres.
Capitalism allows for poor people the freedom to, first of all, own their own property, to start their own businesses, to go work. Capitalism produces more jobs than there are people. Every place it's tried, more jobs are created than there are people.
El capitalismo hace que la gente mantenga pueda comprar su tierra, pueda tener su trabajo. El capitalismo lo que hace es que crea más oportunidades para que todos tengan acceso a eso.
In every other system,
En cualquier otro sistema,
poor people are stuck as subsistence farmers because there are no opportunities, there are no jobs, there is no economic growth.
en otros sistemas, la persona se queda como un granjero, como un subgranjero, porque no hay más oportunidades, porque no hay ninguna manera para que puedan salir adelante.
Before capitalism, everybody was poor, nobody had opportunities.
Antes del capitalismo, todos eran pobres, nadie tenía oportunidades.
When we get close to real capitalism, everybody has opportunities. Some take advantage of them and do better than others, but everybody has opportunities.
Con el capitalismo todos tienen oportunidades, algunos las toman y se vuelven mejores, llegan al mejor lugar, y otros simplemente no, pero todos tienen oportunidades.
And again, you can see this by the fact that the poor people succeed under capitalism to rise up and to achieve things which they cannot under any other system.
Y usted lo puede ver también, dándose cuenta que la gente pobre ha podido salir adelante y ha podido lograr eso, incluso viniendo de una condición tan baja.
Now let me be clear what I mean by capitalism so we don't mistake Colombia for capitalism or even the United States today for capitalism.
Déjenme explicarles cómo funciona el capitalismo para mí, para que tengan una conclusión en cómo es el capitalismo en Colombia como en Estados Unidos.
Because there is no capitalism today, pure capitalism in the world, and very few countries are even close to being capitalist today.
Y ni siquiera hay un capitalismo completo en todo el mundo. Ningún país se atreve a decir que es completamente capitalista.
Capitalism is a system of free markets, free of all coercion, of all force.
El capitalismo es un sistema de libre mercado, libre de coerción.
Free of government regulations, free of government controls, free of government incentives, subsidies, manipulations, and everything else that the government does.
Es libre de subsidiarias, libre de reglas del gobierno, libre de cualquier impedimento.
Capitalism is a system of private property where the government doesn't own property. All property is privately owned, or almost all private property is privately owned.
Estos sistemas del gobierno no le pertenece nada, todo le pertenece al sector privado.
So we don't have capitalism today. America heavily regulates all of its industries. The government is involved in all aspects of the economy.
No hay capitalismo. América ha manejado todo eso en todos los mismos aspectos del capitalismo. No hay un capitalismo externo.
And of course in Colombia we're even less capitalistic than in America.
E incluso Colombia es mucho menos capitalista que Estados Unidos.
So let me get back to the thread.
Entonces déjenme volver a la pregunta.
So the key here is that again, if you measure things by, you can choose the measure, I don't really care. If you measure things by human success, by human flourishing, by human life, capitalism has worked.
Déjenme volver a lo que estaba hablando antes. Si seguimos el mismo sistema, si seguimos la misma regla, el capitalismo funciona.
To the extent that it's been tried.
Hasta el punto en que se ha intentado.
And we know why capitalism works.
¿Y saben por qué ha funcionado?
We've had great economists who've explained how it works, why it works, the functioning of capitalism.
Es porque tenemos grandes economistas que han explicado
Whether it's
cómo funciona, cómo lo hace y qué han logrado.
Whether it's Hayek or Mises or even Milton Friedman, there have been great economists that explain the whole process of capitalism many, many times.
Así como Mises o Frida, que ha explicado el capitalismo muchas veces.
And yet, and this is the big mystery,
Y sí, y ese es el gran misterio.
nobody seems to care.
A nadie le importa.
Everybody hates capitalism.
Todo el mundo odia el capitalismo.
The whole Western world is moving away from capitalism.
Todo el mundo occidental está alejándose del capitalismo.
I mean, what we're seeing in the world today is a rejection of capitalism, particularly in the West. Asia's a little different, but in the West, a wholesale rejection of the whole idea of
Y
capitalism,
lo que está
and free
viendo ahora
markets.
es simplemente un rechazo completo del capitalismo, sobre todo por el sistema occidental. El sistema oriental está bien, pero el occidental tiene un gran rechazo del capitalismo.
So the question has to be why?
La pregunta es ¿por qué?
If I'm right, and capitalism is so good for human flourishing, then why are human beings turning their backs on the system that makes their lives good?
Entonces, si el capitalismo es tan bueno y ayuda tanto a la gente para que salga adelante, ¿por qué una persona le da respaldo a un sistema que le ayuda tanto?
And I think this is where Ayn Rand's contribution to this debate is so important.
Y aquí es donde creo que Ayn Rand hace una gran contribución a este tema.
Because Ayn Rand says that people don't care
Porque Ayn Rand dice que la gente no le importa
automatically
automáticamente
about human flourishing.
no le importa automáticamente nada sobre el florecer del ser humano.
People don't necessarily want to be better off, wealthier, happier.
La gente no le importa ser entre más rico, más happy, más feliz. Sorry.
It was much funnier when you said it. That's good. What is capitalism about? What are free markets really about?
¿De qué se trata realmente el mercado libre?
What's the essence of free markets? What are they about?
¿Cuál es la esencia del mercado libre? ¿De qué se trata?
Why does Steve Jobs make this?
¿Por qué Steve Jobs hizo eso?
Self-interest.
Self-interest.
What do we mean by self-interest? Make that real.
real.
Yeah, but what do we mean by that? Why does he make
¿A qué nos
this?
queremos referir con eso? ¿Para qué lo hizo?
In real terms, why does he make it?
¿Para qué está hecho?
What? To help the people?
To connect.
To connect people. You think Bill Gates cares about people?
¿Se cree que la gente
Steve Jobs, sorry. He cares about me connecting with somebody?
¿Cree que le importa que yo me conecte con otra
What's
persona?
that?
About control.
No, he doesn't control me by
No,
this.
no me controla. Eso no me controla.
I don't have to buy it.
¿Ah? About
Dinero, even I know what it means.
about
He wants to make money.
¿Quiere hacer dinero?
He builds this because he wants to make money. You know what the profit margin on this is?
¿Saben cuál es el margen de ganancia en esto?
It's over 50%.
Más del 50%.
If he wanted to control me, if he wanted to connect me, he could have sold it for half price.
Conectarme, tengo que pagar un precio.
No, he wants to make money.
¿Quiere hacer dinero?
But it's not just money. Look, he doesn't, it's just not just about money. Why did Steve Jobs go to work every day to build something like this?
No es solamente acerca del dinero, porque Steve Jobs fue a trabajar todos los días. ¿Por qué?
Beneficio.
Para benefits.
About a benefit.
Yeah, benefits.
To whom?
¿Para quién?
Para él.
¿To himself?
Yeah, because he loved it.
Sí, porque lo amaba.
Because this was fun.
Porque eso era divertido.
This is his passion.
Era su pasión.
He loved making beautiful things that function well, that we all use.
Le encantaba hacer cosas bonitas que funcionaran bien y que todo el mundo usara.
But let's be clear, this is about Steve Jobs.
Pero seamos claros, este teléfono se trata acerca de Steve Jobs.
He didn't make this for me.
Él no lo hizo para
He
mí.
didn't ask me if I wanted it.
No me preguntó si lo quería.
He didn't ask me what features should be on it.
No me preguntó qué características debería tener.
He was self-interested.
Él estaba interesado en sí mismo y en su mismo producto.
But the self-interest expresses itself in money
Y expresó su mismo dinero en
and
dinero,
passion.
en pasión.
Now, why did I buy it?
¿Por qué lo compré?
Because in 2008, the US economy was spiraling out of control, going down.
Porque en el 2008 la economía de Estados Unidos iba cayendo sin control.
That's when the first iPhone came out.
Y fue cuando salió el primer iPhone.
So I went to buy my first iPhone because I wanted to stimulate the US economy.
Porque fui a comprar mi primer iPhone porque quería estimular la economía de mi país.
Because that's why you guys go to the mall, right?
Porque es porque ustedes van al centro comercial.
You go shopping because you want to help your fellow man.
Porque ustedes van a hacer compras porque quieren ayudar a los demás.
You want to make sure people have jobs.
Quieren que todos tengan trabajo.
You want to make sure the Colombian economy keeps growing.
Porque quieren que la economía de Colombia siga creciendo.
Why do you go shopping? Because you don't. I'm not going to ask who goes shopping for that reason because I don't want to embarrass anybody.
No quiero preguntarles quién va a hacer eso, quién va a hacer esas compras por esas razones, porque no quiero pasar de vergüenza.
So why do you go shopping?
Entonces les pregunto, ¿por qué ustedes van a hacer compras?
What?
Para satisfacer una necesidad.
To satisfy a need.
To satisfy needs, satisfy want. The point of going shopping is for you.
El punto de ir a comprar es por mí, para mí.
You want to buy nice clothes for
Yo
you.
quiero comprar cosas bonitas para mí.
You want to buy an iPhone because it's cool and it'll make you more productive.
Yo quiero comprar un iPhone porque es muy bacano y porque me hace más productivo.
But it's about you.
Pero es sobre mí.
So Bill Gates' self-interest, my self-interest, come together.
El interés de Bill Gates y el interés mío se juntan.
That's what a market is.
Eso es un mercado.
Market is a place in which people go to pursue their self-interest.
Un mercado es cuando dos personas se encuentran un mismo gusto y lo vuelven una sola cosa.
Nobody goes to the marketplace to maximize social utility.
Nadie va a un mercado a maximizar la utilidad de algo.
You know, except maybe a philosopher.
De pronto un filósofo.
The marketplace is about self-interest, a naked self-interest.
Y el mercado es acerca de un interés propio y puramente interés propio.
What are we being taught about self-interest?
¿Qué nos enseñaron de interés propio?
Since we were this big, self-interest, good or bad?
Regresamos de este tamaño. El gusto propio, lo que uno quiere. ¿Bueno o malo? Bad.
I mean, I don't know who your mothers were, but my mother,
No sé quiénes son sus mamás, pero
good Jewish mother,
mi mamá judía
taught me
me enseñó que
that self-interest was bad.
el interés propio es malo.
I should think of others first.
Debía pensar primero en los otros.
That morality and virtue were about being selfless.
Era siempre de ser hacia los demás.
They're about sacrifice.
Del sacrificio a los demás.
What sacrifice?
¿Qué sacrificio?
Giving something and expecting what in return?
Dar algo y esperar que me den a mí.
Nada.
No.
Nada.
Nothing, or something less important.
O algo menos importante.
Did I sacrifice $300 when I bought this?
¿Sacrifiqué $300 para comprar eso?
No, because I gave $300 and what did I get in return?
No, porque el dinero que me dieron de regreso.
Something more valuable to me than $300. More valuable.
Que me da mucho más valor.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have given up the $300.
Si no, no me hubiera dado los $300.
What do we call that?
¿Cómo llamamos eso?
Esto beneficio.
A trade.
Un cambio. Trade.
A trade is no good.
Pero el
We're
intercambio
told
es bueno.
morally,
Moralmente.
you're supposed to sacrifice.
Se supone que debes sacrificarte.
That's noble.
Eso es lo noble.
That's
Es
good.
lo bueno.
That's what gets you a statue in the park.
Eso es lo que te da estatus.
Just, what? So think about somebody like Bill Gates,
Piensa en alguien como Bill Gates,
Microsoft.
Microsoft.
He made $70 billion for himself.
Hizo $700 billones de dólares por sí mismo.
He changed the world.
Y cambió el mundo.
He made all of our lives better.
Hizo todas nuestras vidas mucho mejor.
Not just the people in this room, but billions of people out there.
No solo la gente de por ahí, todo el mundo.
There's very few people on the entire planet who have not been touched by Microsoft.
Hay muy pocas gentes en todo el mundo que no haya sido tocado por Microsoft.
Whose life is not a little bit better because of Microsoft.
Que su vida no ha sido un poquito mejor debido a Microsoft.
And for many people, a lot better because of Microsoft.
Y con mucha gente su vida se hizo mucho mejor gracias a Microsoft.
The internet as we know it today would not exist
El internet que
if not for Microsoft.
no hubiera existido si no hubiera sido por Microsoft.
So how much moral credit, moral ethical credit, did Bill Gates get for changing the world?
Entonces, ¿cuál es el valor ético y moral que recibe él por cambiar el mundo?
For making all of our lives better?
Por hacer toda nuestra vida mejor.
Do we think he's a saint?
Creemos que es un santo.
Do we build statues in the
Le
park?
construimos estatuas en
Name
parques.
roads for Bill
Hacemos
Gates?
calles que se llaman Bill Gates.
No. No moral credit, zero.
Cero crédito.
A little bit negative. Negative.
Al contrario, simplemente le hablamos mal de él. Siempre es negativo.
Why negative?
¿Por qué negativo?
Because he made money.
Porque él hace dinero.
Yes, he helped all of us, but he made money.
Él nos ayuda a todos.
That's not acceptable morally.
Y eso no es una moralidad aceptable.
That's self-interested.
Eso es ser egoísta.
But when does Bill Gates become a good guy?
Pero cuando él se volvió un chico bueno,
When he leaves Microsoft,
cuando deja Microsoft,
starts a foundation,
empieza una fundación
starts giving his money away.
y regala su dinero.
Now he's a good guy.
Ahora sí es buen chico.
Because making money, building, creating, that doesn't count.
Porque hacer, crear, construir, eso no importa, eso no vale.
Giving it away, that's good.
Regalarlo todo, sí es lo que vale.
But when he made the money, he impacted billions of people.
Pero cuando hizo ese dinero, impactó a millones de personas.
When he gives the money away, he'll impact a few thousand.
Pero cuando lo regalan, solamente le da poquito, son unos pocos miles.
Doesn't matter. What matters is his motivation.
Eso no importa, lo que importa es su motivación.
When he was at Microsoft, he was motivated by his own self-interest, expressed in the money.
Cuando estaba en Microsoft, estaba motivado por su propio egoísmo, su propio interés de hacer dinero.
But when he's giving it away, it appears that he's not benefiting from it.
Pero cuando regala, aparentemente es que no se importa a sí mismo, sino simplemente hacia los demás.
But we're still not ready to make him a saint.
Pero no estamos listos para hacerlo un santo.
Why not?
¿Por qué no?
He has not given everything.
Yeah, he's still rich.
Él aún es rico,
And he seems to be enjoying giving it away.
y aunque parece darlo todo,
Nobody ever was a saint while having fun.
nadie fue un santo por divertirse, por hacer las cosas bien.
So if we wanted him to be statues,
Si queremos hacer
boulevards named after him,
calles y estatuas con su nombre,
he'd have to give it all away.
tiene que regalarlo todo,
Maybe move into a tent.
moverse, cambiarse
And if
simplemente
he could bleed a little bit for us,
y vivir ahí.
suffer a little bit,
Sufrir un poco,
then he would be a moral hero.
ahí sí sería un buen modelo.
That is sick.
Eso es enfermizo,
That is a crazy culture.
es una cultura loca.
A culture that says building, creating, making something. Not just to help other people, but to help yourself, to make your life a good life.
Una cultura que dice que crear, construir cosas que te hacen bien a ti, que te hacen una mejor persona, que arreglan tu vida.
Bill Gates really applied himself. He took care of his life. He took care of the people he loved.
Bill Gates sí realmente se interesó por todos ellos, por todos los que estaban a su alrededor. Creó, construyó y trató de mejorar la vida de los que estaban a su alrededor.
And for that we want to penalize him. For that we want to hate him.
Y por eso queremos castigarlo y por eso queremos penalizarlo.
Bill Gates no construyó solo, no vieron otras personas que
But Bill Gates didn't build that by himself. There were a lot of people involved in that.
Oh, a lot of people do it, absolutely.
Mucha gente lo hizo, claro que sí.
12,
So, he says, so why is he taking
let me finish. 12,000 Microsoft employees became millionaires.
12,000 empleados de Microsoft se volvieron millonarios.
Thousands of people
Miles de personas.
all over the world
Todo el mundo.
made huge amounts of money by supplying Microsoft, by working with Microsoft.
Hicieron mucho dinero dándole productos a Microsoft y trabajando con Microsoft.
Every person who contributed to Microsoft's success got paid.
Todo el mundo que fue parte, todos los que fueron parte del éxito de Microsoft recibieron dinero y se les pagó.
Nobody was exploited.
Nadie fue explotado,
Nobody was treated unjustly.
nadie fue tratado
They
injustamente.
got paid based on what they produced.
Simplemente fueron pagados basados en lo que produjeron.
Bill Gates got paid more
Bill Gates se quedó pagado más
because he produced more.
porque él hizo más
He contributed more.
y contribuyó más.
I can replace most people,
Yo puedo reemplazar a la mayoría de personas,
but you cannot replace a Bill Gates or Steve Jobs.
pero eso no puede reemplazar a un Bill Gates o a Steve Jobs.
Look what happened to Microsoft once Bill Gates left,
Miren lo que le pasó a Microsoft una vez que se fue
and we'll see about Apple.
y vamos a ver cómo le va a Apple.
So people are not equal.
La gente no es igual.
We don't deserve equal.
No merecemos las cosas por igual.
Some of us produce a lot, and therefore we deserve a lot.
Merecemos más.
Some of us produce a little,
Algunos producimos poco.
and therefore we deserve a
Y
little.
por lo mismo recibimos poco.
But Bill Gates paid for everything that he got.
Pero él pagó por todo lo que hizo.
People say, but he drove on public streets that the government built him. Doesn't he owe anything to the government?
Y él hizo calles, hizo un montón de cosas, y el gobierno no hizo nada. ¿Acaso el gobierno le debía a él?
Yeah.
Sí.
Yeah, the government stole billions of dollars from him to build those streets that he
El
used.
gobierno recibió millones de dólares por parte de él para construir eso.
Bill Gates paid for everything that anybody gave him, he paid.
Bill Gates le dio a todos lo que se merecía por todo lo que él había recibido de
He
ellos.
doesn't owe anybody anything.
Él no le debe nada a nadie.
So, note that we live in a culture
Dense cuenta que vivimos en una cultura
that doesn't value trade,
que no valora el trueque,
that doesn't value wealth creation,
que no valora la creación de riqueza,
that doesn't value building businesses.
que no valora el crear negocios.
It values sharing.
Valora ese compartir,
It values giving.
valora el dar,
It values
valora
sacrifice.
el sacrificio
That's socialism.
y el socialismo.
Socialism is consistent
El socialismo consistente
with sharing,
con compartir,
with not creating wealth,
con el no crear riqueza,
with being selfless.
con el bien egoístas,
Selfless.
selfless.
Yes. It's the opposite.
Altruista.
Para ser altruistas, ¿sabes?
So when we have a particular moral code, which is an altruistic moral code,
Cuando tenemos un código moral diferente que es altruista,
we cannot get capitalism.
no podemos ser capitalistas.
People don't vote for success. People don't vote for money. People vote what they think is right, just, and good.
La gente no vota por el éxito, por lo que está bien, no. La gente vota por lo que considera que está bien y es justicia.
So Western countries move away from capitalism
Entonces los países occidentales se van del capitalismo
because they view capitalism as self-interested,
porque el capitalismo es egoísta,
which is true,
lo cual es cierto,
and they view it as evil.
y lo ven como el mal.
They don't want it,
No lo quieren.
and they're willing to give up money for it.
Y están dispuestos a,
They're willing to give up standard of living for it.
están dispuestos a dejar de tener calidad de vida por eso.
And in that sense, economic arguments don't matter.
Y en ese punto, los argumentos económicos no importan.
Everybody knows capitalism works.
Todo el mundo sabe que el capitalismo funciona.
Even if they don't admit it, they know it.
Incluso aunque no admitan que funciona.
It's not about working.
¿Qué tal es trabajar?
It's about being good.
Es acerca de
It's about being just.
Es acerca de ser justo. No tanto de trabajar, sino de ser justo y ser bueno.
So Ayn Rand says if we really care about freedom,
Entonces, si a alguien realmente le importa lo que es la
if
libertad,
we care about human flourishing,
si nos importa lo que es el florecimiento
we
humano,
care about material economic success,
si nos importa realmente lo que es el éxito económico,
then we must reject the morality of altruism.
entonces debemos proyectar la moral del altruismo.
We must reject the morality that says that your purpose in life is to serve other people.
Debemos rechazar la moralidad que dice que nuestro propósito en la vida es servir a los demás.
That your purpose in life is to sacrifice.
Que su propósito en la vida es sacrificio, sacrificar.
And we need a moral code
Necesitamos un código moral
that justifies,
que justifique,
that is built on the idea of egoism, self-interest.
que justifique la idea y que justifique que todo se construye acerca de la idea de ser egoísta, self-interest.
Is there a word in Spanish for self-interest, or is it egoism?
Egoísmo.
So in English, there are three words.
Self,
Selfish, self-interest, and egoism. And in Spanish,
egoísta, interesado,
the self.
interest, which is different from English,
Okay.
y ser, tener interés propio.
So really, egoism is the best word for Spanish audience to get what I'm
Yes.
trying to say. Okay, that makes life easier.
It doesn't make it easier for us.
So what we need,
Entonces lo que necesitamos es,
Ayn Rand says,
dice algo,
is an alternative to this morality of otherism or altruism,
una moralidad diferente a ese altruismo,
which she believes is a morality ultimately of death and destruction, of poverty.
en la cual ella cree que es una moralidad destructiva de pobreza.
So she asked the question, a very simple question, why?
Entonces ella hace una simple pregunta.
Why should I sacrifice for other people?
¿Por qué me tengo que sacrificar con otras personas?
Why is other people's lives more important than mine?
Porque la vida de otras personas es mucho más importante que la mía.
And there is no answer,
Y no hay respuesta.
because neither of those are true.
Porque ninguna de las dos es una verdadera pregunta.
My life should be more important to me than your life.
Mi vida debería ser más importante para mí que sus propias vidas.
Your life should be more important to you than my life.
Su vida debería ser mucho más importante para ustedes que mi propia vida.
It's your life,
Es su vida.
and you only have one shot at
Si
it.
solo tienes una oportunidad en ella.
You don't get a second try.
No tienen un segundo intento en eso.
So you have to figure out how to make the most of it.
¿Cómo hacer que eso funcione?
So the purpose of morality
Entonces el propósito de la moralidad
should be
debería ser
not to teach us how to sacrifice, how to be selfless,
no cómo ser autosacrificados o cómo ser morales,
but to teach us how to live,
pero sin embargo es enseñarles cómo vivir,
to teach us how to live well,
cómo vivir bien,
teach us how to be happy and successful and prosperous.
cómo ser felices, prosperous, happy, prosperous,
Successful. Doesn't matter.
exitosos, prósperos y felices.
The particular word doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's okay. So morality, and there's a if you think back to, I don't know how many of you know philosophy, but if you think back to the philosophy of Aristotle,
Si piensan en la filosofía de Aristóteles,
for Aristotle,
para Aristóteles,
morality is about the values and virtues that make for a good life.
la moralidad y la virtud son los valores que hacen una buena vida.
Not other people's life,
No la vida de otros,
your own life.
tu propia vida.
Living a good life.
Viviendo una vida buena.
Living the best life a human being can live.
Viviendo la mejor vida que un ser humano pueda vivir.
Being the best that you can be.
Viviendo lo mejor que usted pueda vivir.
That's what morality should teach us.
Eso es lo que la moralidad debería enseñarnos.
And both Aristotle and Ayn Rand understood
Y por lo mismo, Aristóteles y Ayn entendieron
that human beings are a particular specific type of animal
que los seres humanos son un tipo específico de animal,
with a specific type of nature.
con un específico tipo de naturaleza.
That some things are good for that nature and some things are bad for that nature.
Que algunas cosas son buenas para esa naturaleza y otras cosas son malas para esa naturaleza.
And as human beings, we're unique in that we can actually choose
Y como seres humanos somos únicos que podemos escoger
to engage in behavior that's bad for us.
el que es bueno o malo para nosotros.
Animals can't do this.
Animales no pueden hacer eso, animales pueden hacer eso.
We have free will.
Nosotros tenemos libre albedrío.
And therefore it's important us to figure out,
Y es importante darte cuenta y entender,
and it's not
y
easy,
no es sencillo,
what is appropriate, what's going to lead us to happiness, what's going to lead us to success, and what is destructive.
no vamos a saber cómo escoger qué nos llevará a la felicidad, a ser exitoso o qué nos va a destruir,
Given our nature.
dado nuestra naturaleza.
So the first most important thing to understand is what our nature is.
Lo primero que necesitamos entender es cuál es nuestra naturaleza,
What makes human beings human?
qué me hace a mí un ser humano,
Or to ask it a little differently,
preguntarlo diferente,
what is it that makes it possible for us to survive?
qué es lo que hace posible que todos sobrevivamos,
Because we're not a regular animal.
porque no somos un animal
We're
cualquiera,
different in some fundamental sense.
somos diferentes en sentidos fundamentales.
We do not survive. We cannot survive
No podemos sobrevivir
at the physical level.
en el nivel físico.
I mean, if you look around the room,
Si usted mira alrededor del cuarto,
we're pretty pathetic.
somos muy patéticos,
We're slow,
somos lentos,
we're weak,
somos débiles,
we have no claws,
no tenemos garras,
we have no fangs.
no tenemos colmillos.
If you are up against a saber-toothed tiger,
Si estás tú contra un tigre de dientes de sable,
you're going to be eaten.
te van a comer.
And yet,
Y aún así,
the saber-toothed tiger's in a museum,
hay tigres de
And here we are.
colmillos en el museo.
the most successful species in human history. In history.
Y aún así, teniendo tigres en el zoológico, somos la especie más exitosa en toda la naturaleza.
We build buildings.
Hacemos edificios,
It's hot outside, so we have air conditioning.
está haciendo calor afuera, entonces tenemos aire
We
acondicionado.
actually wear clothes, nobody else does.
Y aún así usamos ropa, nadie más lo hace.
We produce our own food.
Producimos nuestra propia comida.
And none of us has the instinct to produce that food.
Y nadie tiene el instinto de producirla.
Nobody here has a gene for making clothes.
Nadie tiene aquí el gen de crear la comida.
None of the requirements of human survival are programmed into us.
Ninguno de los sistemas de sobrevivencia están programados en nosotros.
So how did we do it?
Entonces, ¿cómo lo hacemos?
What makes it possible for human beings to survive?
¿Qué hace posible para el ser humano que sobreviva?
Yeah, mine.
The logic.
Logic, our ability to reason.
La habilidad de razonar.
ability to figure stuff out.
La habilidad de descubrir las cosas y darnos cuenta de las cosas.
Imagine 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, some
Imagínense 20.000 años.
genius noticing that if a seed drops to the ground and if it's watered, a plant grows from that.
Que si una semilla se lanza al piso y se riega, va a crecer una planta. Imagínense ese genio.
That was a genius who discovered that.
Es un genio el que descubrió eso.
And we probably burnt him at the stake. We probably burnt him at the stake.
Y probablemente en esa época lo hubiéramos tirado a la hoguera.
Because most of human history, that's what we did to geniuses.
Porque eso es lo que la mayoría de gente le hace a los genios.
And then, it probably took another 10,000 years before somebody, Bill Gates,
Y de pronto tomó otros 10.000 años hasta que otra persona,
some entrepreneur, to figure out that you could take seeds and plant them in a row and actually create an industry called agriculture.
que pensara que colocar un montón de semillas en una línea recta y la regara, crear algo que se llamara agricultura.
So what makes it possible for human beings to survive is the use of our mind, the use of our reason.
Entonces lo que hace posible para el ser humano sobrevivir es el uso de su mente y el uso de la razón y el raciocinio.
So if you want to be an egoist,
Entonces si quieres ser un egoísta,
the thing you need to cultivate,
lo que necesitas cultivar,
the thing you want to promote,
lo que quieres promover,
is the mind,
es la mente,
is your rational ability,
es lo que tienes para ti mismo,
is your ability to reason,
es tu habilidad de razonar,
the ability to solve the problem of human survival, of your survival.
es la manera de resolver el problema de supervivencia humana.
And it's that ability to reason that should be celebrated.
Y es esa habilidad de razonar lo que debería ser celebrado.
If we care about human flourishing, as I think we should, because each one of us should want to flourish,
Y si nos preocupa tanto el florecimiento humano, lo que nos debe preocupar, porque debemos florecer como humanos,
because the purpose of life and the purpose of morality should be flourishing,
porque el propósito de la moralidad y el progreso humano debe ser el florecer,
then what we want is to create a system
entonces lo que queremos crear es un
in
sistema
which we can live together
en el que todos podamos vivir juntos
and use our minds
y usar nuestras mentes
and use our reason
y usar nuestro raciocinio
to promote our own well-being.
para promover nuestro propio bienestar humano.
So, what is good for human beings? What makes survival of human beings possible
Entonces lo que hace posible la supervivencia de los humanos
is an objective truth.
es una verdad objetiva,
It's human reason.
es el raciocinio humano.
What's the enemy of reason?
¿Cuál es el enemigo de la razón?
Ignorance.
Ignorance.
Well, but ignorance can be overcome.
Pero la ignorancia se puede
What cannot be overcome? What destroys reason?
¿Qué no puede ser superado? La ignorancia puede superar, pero ¿qué no puede ser superado? Y es el enemigo de la lógica. De la lógica del raciocinio. Las emociones.
Emotions, again, can be controlled and overcome. You can learn how to deal with them.
No pensar.
¿Ah?
No pensar.
No, to think.
Everybody can think.
Todos pueden pensar.
But what can other people do to you to stop you from thinking?
Fake.
Well, again, faith can be overcome. So what I'm getting at is, in my view, the thing that destroys reason
En mi idea, en mi opinión, lo que es una
is
razón
force.
es la fuerza.
Because force makes reason irrelevant.
Porque la fuerza hace que la
If I put a gun to your back, it doesn't matter what you think.
Si yo le pongo una pistola en su espalda, no importa lo que se piense.
If I tell you that you have to believe in X,
Si le digo que tiene que creer en actos,
otherwise I'll burn you at the stake.
de otra manera lo tiro a la hoguera.
What point is there to think?
¿De qué punto tiene entonces que usted piense?
It becomes very dangerous.
Se vuelve peligroso.
You might come to the conclusion that X isn't true,
Pues llega usted a la conclusión de que eso debe ser verdad.
and then you're dead.
Y entonces está muerto.
So the enemy of reason, the enemy of thinking is force.
El enemigo de la razón es la fuerza.
If I put a gun to the back of your head and tell you, from now on, you have to behave as if 2 + 2 = 5.
Si les coloco una pistola en su espalda y les digo que deben comportarse de una manera en la que digan que 2 más 2 son 5,
You can't build a bridge.
no puede construir un
You
puente,
can't program a computer.
no puede programar una computadora,
You can't function.
no puede funcionar.
Force
Fuerza,
annihilates the mind,
la fuerza separa la mente,
makes
anula
it
la mente,
irrelevant,
la hace irrelevante.
because you follow orders.
Porque tú sigues órdenes,
You do what you're told,
haces lo que te dicen
or you die.
o mueres.
So it's not faith in and of itself that's the real danger
Entonces realmente ese es el gran peligro
in a social context.
en un contexto social.
It's when faith is forced on you, or a particular faith is forced
Es
on you.
cuando una fe particular te la embuten.
Now, faith might be damaging to your own ability to reason.
Tu propia fe puede ser peligrosa para tu propia forma de pensar.
But again, that's something you can overcome.
Pero es algo que tú mismo puedes superar.
But if the guys with the gun wants me to hold a particular faith,
Pero si el tipo con la pistola quiere que tú seas de una fe,
I can't overcome the gun.
no puedo pasar, no puedo superar la
Particularly if they have big guns and I have little ones.
Pues yo sentía, pregunta. That's the big problem I see in capitalism. And it's who has the gun. The market is the one that makes the way what I need to do.
El grande va a ser más grande y va a ser más pequeño.
Okay.
Más grande va a ser más grande y aquí no voy a ser más pequeño.
The big one, it's over the big one is going to make you feel smaller because you have the power to do it.
The only people who can make you feel smaller, the only person who can make you feel
La
smaller
única persona que lo puede hacer sentir pequeño
is you.
es usted mismo.
Nobody can make you feel small. I don't feel small because Bill Gates has 60 billion and I don't. Anyway, close.
Yo no me estoy pequeño porque Bill Gates tiene 600 millones y yo no. Y lo es loco. Bill Gates es bueno, Irlanda.
No, he doesn't.
No, no la tiene.
The only people who have a gun in capitalism,
La
this is
única
the,
persona que tiene un arma en capitalismo
is the government.
es el gobierno.
And they have only one use for that gun,
Y tienen solamente un uso para esa pistola.
to protect me and you and you.
Para protegerme a mí, a usted y a usted. El protegerme a mí, a usted y a
The
usted.
only job of government under capitalism, in a minute, the only job of government under capitalism is to protect us from people trying to force themselves on us.
El trabajo y la pistola que tiene el gobierno es proteger a usted, a mí y a todos de que alguien más a la fuerza nos influya o nos incluya o nos meta algo.
And their job is to protect me just as much as they protect Bill Gates.
Y el trabajo de ellos es protegerme tanto a mí como a Bill Gates por igual.
It's not to give Bill Gates favors, that's not capitalism.
No es darle a él favores especiales, no es capitalismo.
That's statism.
Eso es estatismo.
El capitalismo corrompe.
¿Ah?
El capitalismo corrompe el gobierno.
And when the capitalism drops in the government,
When the capitalists what?
drops and gets wrong.
When the capitalists corrupt the government, that's not capitalism.
Eso no es capitalismo entonces.
The whole point of capitalism is a separation of economics from government.
El punto de capitalismo es que todos tengan uno.
It's a condition where the government has no influence on the economy.
Es que el gobierno no tenga ninguna influencia en el mercado.
So corporations, businesses, rich people have no incentive to go to the government to ask for favors.
Entonces el gobierno, la gente rica no tiene que ir al gobierno a pedirle favores.
Because the government is banned by constitution from providing those favors.
Porque el gobierno tiene prohibido constitucionalmente ayudar a esas personas.
So it's a separation of economics from state.
Es una separación entre lo económico y el Estado.
Most corruption happens in the US, Colombia might be different.
La mayoría de corrupción pasa en los Estados Unidos, Colombia puede ser diferente.
When government comes to business with a gun,
Cuando el gobierno llega con una pistola donde el negocio,
and business says, look, I'll pay you, put the gun away.
y los negociantes o los negocios dicen, te pago, pero ya no ponga la pistola.
That's when the corruption happens, but it starts with government.
Ahí es donde empieza la corrupción, pero es diferente.
I'll give you an example.
Te doy un ejemplo.
How many dollars do you think Bill Gates spent lobbying the US government when Microsoft in the mid-1990s?
¿Cuántos dólares cree que usted que Bill Gates se gastó hablando con congresistas o haciendo lobby en los 90s para la creación de Microsoft?
Zero.
Cero.
Nothing.
Nada.
Then in 1996,
Entonces en el 96,
after he was threatened by senators and congressmen
después de que lo amenazaran senadores y congresistas,
because he wasn't giving money,
porque él no estaba dando dinero,
the Justice Department came after him
la justicia fue tras él
for antitrust violations.
por políticas de antimonopolio.
What was the crime?
¿Cuál fue el crimen?
The crime was he gave Internet Explorer away for free.
Su crimen fue dar Internet Explorer gratis para todos.
Crime?
¿Un crimen?
Guess how much Microsoft spends on lobbying today?
Imagínense cuánto creen ustedes que se gasta Microsoft hablando hoy, haciendo lobby.
Tens of millions of dollars a year.
Miles de millones de dólares al año.
They've learned the lesson.
Aprendieron la lección.
If you don't bribe the statists,
Si no sobornas a los
they will come after you.
van tras ti.
But it's the gun that the government has that is not being separated from the economy, which causes this cronyism.
Pero es el arma que tiene el gobierno lo que no hace que esto se separe y hace que esto ocurra frecuentemente.
Under capitalism, politicians have no power over the economy.
Y los capitalistas no tienen poder sobre esta economía.
So Bill Gates doesn't lobby.
Entonces Bill Gates hace lo que
All he does is produce great products.
todo lo que él hace es solamente
And you don't want to buy his products, though?
Y si los quieres comprarlos, no los compras.
That's freedom.
Eso es libertad.
That's markets.
Ese es el mercado.
Yeah, he had a question in the back.
Well, I think what I think when you say the way of marketing, because they and that's not true. And what you ¿Me puedes repetir un poquito más esto que tengo que hacer en simultáneo? Vale, entonces vuelve a dar.
Sí, lo que dice, o sea, hay una realidad que es una parte de individuo
In a great party,
porque hay una ideología de ahí como se llama
because there is an ideology and a set of rules that
que crean individuos
create an individual
pero hacen ver de una
that
manera
makes them see in a
pensando de
different
una
way,
manera
they can
determinada.
see in a different way.
Hay un libro de Herman
There is a book about Herman. Yeah.
que se llama Hombre Criminal.
It's called the Advantage Moment.
Desviar al hombre del capitalismo
And it's to make the capitalism become a it said that there is freedom of choice. But really the only freedom is a freedom of consuming. Consume, and you think you're free. So you say capitalism is just part of it. And just create some goals, some stereotypes.
I get the question.
Entiendo la pregunta.
I get the question.
Entiendo su pregunta. Entiendo su pregunta. Entiendo su pregunta.
No, es una forma de decisión
He's saying you just comment.
Okay, I got the comment.
Entiendo su comentario, gracias.
And Herbert Marcus
En Herbert Marcus,
is nonsense.
no tiene sentido lo que dice, está loco.
It's anti-historical.
No es,
It's non-historical. It's not connected to reality.
no está conectado con la realidad actual.
The idea if we don't have choices, then what are we doing here?
Si no tenemos elecciones, ¿qué hacemos acá?
We're determined to do what we're going to do anyway.
Estamos igual determinados a hacer lo que nos toca hacer de cualquier manera.
Why read a book?
¿Por qué leer un libro?
What are you going to learn from it? You're predetermined to behave in a particular way anyway.
Si ya, ¿para qué leer un libro?
Why go to university? Why gain knowledge?
¿Para qué conocimiento?
We have free will. We have free choices.
Tenemos libertad de albedrío.
Sí, yo creo que dice todo el discurso es decir, a toda la gente que se le hizo durante toda el asesinato, otra cosa que más de la masacre de residentes.
Who assassinated who?
Entonces, a todo el que los fundamentalistas
Fundamentalism people when they are valid criticism, and they are more valid than the actual criticism. ¿La escuela qué? ¿La escuela qué?
I don't understand. Does somebody here understand the competition?
Yes, it's kind of blaming the capitalism for the neoliberalism.
For the what?
Neoliberalism.
Neoliberals.
Neoliberals, yes,
Neoliberals,
exactly.
okay.
They say that the monetarism is related with capitalism.
So monetarism being the Chicago monetarist school?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And also say that the war in Iraq, the war in the Middle East, is all blame of the capitalists. Just because USA, government, USA, is acting in this way.
One, USA is not capitalist.
Uno, Estados Unidos no es capitalista.
Two,
Dos,
if you're a real capitalist, you're not a monetarist.
si eres un capitalista, no es un monetarista.
Because you don't believe in central banking.
Porque no crees en la banca central.
Three, neoliberalism is not capitalism.
Neoliberalismo no es capitalismo.
Neoliberalism is a mixture of statism with some capitalism.
Neoliberalismo es una mezcla de estatismo con capitalismo.
Now,
Ahora,
given that,
dado eso,
it's still true that neoliberalism has been an incredible success.
aún dado esto, es muy cierto que el neoliberalismo tiene un gran éxito.
To the extent that countries have lower tariffs, have engaged in trade,
Dado el punto de que países han bajado sus reglas y han expandido sus mercados.
have freed up their economies from control and adopted some elements of free markets.
Han ampliado las libertades en sus mercados y han asumido nuevos mercados.
To that extent, those countries have created wealth,
Hacia ese punto, esos países han creado riqueza
and the poor have come out of poverty.
y los pobres han salido de la pobreza.
The critics of neoliberalism can't explain
La crítica del neoliberalismo no puede explicar
how over the last 30 years,
cómo durante los últimos 30 años,
800 million people have come out of poverty in Asia alone.
cómo durante los últimos 30 años 300 millones de personas han salido de la pobreza en China.
In countries that all adopted so-called neoliberal policies.
Y eso que el país ha adoptado políticas neoliberalistas nuevas.
What the critics of neoliberalism really are
La crítica del neoliberalismo realmente es
people who don't care about the poor,
la gente no le importa los pobres,
who don't care about human well-being,
no nos importa el bienestar humano,
who don't care about progress.
que no le importa el progreso,
Because progress is unequivocally
porque el progreso no es igualitario,
tied to free markets.
Siempre va pegado al mercado libre.
And even though I disagree with neoliberals on a lot of things,
Y aunque yo no estoy de acuerdo con muchos neoliberales y con muchas otras cosas,
the promotion of free markets has been incredible to the world.
la promoción de los libres mercados ha sido increíble para el resto del mundo.
Let me just say that to blame what happens in the Middle East
Déjame decirles simplemente, la culpa de lo que está pasando en el Medio Oriente,
on the West
en el Occidente,
is to completely not understand
es el no entender completamente
what is going on in the Middle East.
la culpa realmente de lo que está pasando en el Medio Oriente es culpa de que el Occidente no ha entendido realmente qué pasa con ellos.
What's going on in the Middle East has everything to do with the ideology that people in the Middle East hold.
Todo lo que está pasando en el Medio Oriente es debido a la ideología que existe en el Medio Oriente. Todo lo que ocurre allá.
It has nothing to do with capitalism.
Y no tiene nada que ver con capitalismo. Pregunta o comentario. ¿Cómo?
Yo creo que, pues en parte, el neoliberalismo es un favorismo esencialmente por una responsabilidad del neoliberalismo. Ha sido implementada en diferentes países, digamos, en el contexto de Washington.
How can neoliberalism be applied in Washington? I don't understand how that can even happen.
Hay una cuestión que quiero comentar,
There's something I want to comment.
y es que
Aquí está.
yo creo que el occidente se está pasando de bien.
I don't think the West doesn't let me go there. Yeah.
Creo que el occidente,
I don't think the West.
el occidente ha tenido mucho influencia en el bien.
I think the West has had a lot of
La
influence
colonia, las colonias inglesas,
since the colony, since the English colony policy and Israel, about cooperation.
So let's do this. When I finish, we can have a discussion about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for as long as you want. I happen to be an expert on it. No, stop. I happen to be an expert on it, but it's not the topic of my conversation right now. English colonialism was not capitalism. Palestinians are certainly not capitalist. And Israelis are not capitalists. We're talking about capitalism here. If capitalism reigned in the Middle East, then there would be no Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is driven by collectivism. It's driven by an ideology that doesn't care about individuals. It's the exact opposite of what I'm arguing. I'm arguing against collectivism. I'm arguing for individualism. And I would argue that if we adopted individualism and we adopted capitalism, most, if not all, of the wars and conflicts in the world would go away. Let me note that capitalism, just because we're in history, capitalism, we can't get into it, I have to finish, so we can't get into this debate. Let me just note a few things about capitalism. The capitalist era in the West is the least violent period in human history. You can look at the numbers. From the Napoleonic Wars until World War I, that was one of the least violent periods in human history. Even today, even in spite of everything going on in the Middle East, today, in the world today, we have less violence than in any period in all of human history. Less murder, less killing in war, less rape. By every statistic you look at, we live today in the most peaceful world ever. That's just a fact. Yeah, we'll take that and then we'll go on. Oh, one other thing I want to say about capitalism. I have to say this about capitalism. One of the greatest evils in human existence
Uno de los grandes males en la existencia de la humanidad was
slavery.
fue la esclavitud.
Capitalism eradicated slavery.
El capitalismo erradicó la esclavitud.
Let me finish.
Déjame terminar.
When did slavery go away?
¿Cuándo se fue el esclavo?
When did slavery go away?
After the Industrial Revolution.
What's that?
After the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
When the people show cash shop the black people, cuando la gente pudo comprar a los propios esclavos y pues era, o sea, ahí como que ellos decidían si se hacían libres, si soltaban, pues si hacían libres a los esclavos.
No, because throughout all of human history, throughout all of human history, we've had slavery. It's in the Bible. God even tells you how to treat your slaves. Go read the Old Testament. The Greeks had slaves. The Romans have slaves. Everybody had slaves. Muslims enslaved blacks, blacks enslaved other blacks. In every single period in human history, we've had slaves. But slavery went away around 1810 in most of the West. And the country that eliminated it was the second most capitalist country in the world. Great Britain. They sent their ships out to stop the slave trade. Not just in England, but everywhere in the world. And then in 1864, America fought a war that eliminated slavery from North America. And why did the North beat the South? Because the North was capitalist and the South was feudal. The North was rich and the South was poor because slavery is bad economic policy. And because once the Declaration of Independence was written in 1776, which declared that all men are created equal and that they have individual rights, slavery became a contradiction
in the West.
La esclavitud se volvió una contradicción en el occidente.
So capitalism, I'll get to you. I can see the hands. He was going to go first. It's for the first time in human history, in all of human history,
Por primera vez en toda la historia de la
we live in a world without slavery, or very little slavery,
vivimos en un mundo que tiene muy poquita esclavitud
because of capitalism,
debido al capitalismo.
not because of anything else.
No es por ningún otro motivo. Pregunta, question.
El gran enemigo
The biggest enemy,
del capitalismo sería el gobierno
the biggest
o
enemy,
las políticas gubernamentales de cada país.
the biggest enemy of the capitalism is the government, or is the policies that the government has.
The biggest enemy of capitalism, in my view,
En mi opinión,
is not the government,
no es el gobierno,
because I believe there should be a government even under capitalism.
porque creo que debería haber un gobierno incluso en capitalismo.
The biggest enemy of capitalism
El gran enemigo del capitalismo
is the moral code that we hold.
es el código moral que tenemos.
The biggest enemy of capitalism is altruism.
El gran enemigo del capitalismo es el altruismo.
The biggest enemy of capitalism is collectivism.
El gran enemigo es el colectivismo.
Government policy and the way government behaves is a consequence of those moral ideas.
La que hace el gobierno y la manera que el gobierno se comporta es el resultado de estas ideas.
And that's why I often tell my libertarian friends
A mis amigos libertarios,
that dealing just with politics and economics
manejar las políticas en la economía
is a waste of time,
es perder,
because it doesn't convince anybody
porque no convence a nadie
and it won't change the world.
y no va a cambiar.
You have to deal with the moral foundations,
Tienes que siempre pelear contra la fundamentación.
which is much harder.
¿Cuál es? Porque es muy,
It takes a lot more work,
toma muchísimo más
and it's
tiempo.
going to take a lot more time,
Y va a tomar mucho más tiempo.
because you have to replace
Porque tienen que dar el lugar
a moral code
el
that has been with us
que estaba con
for
nosotros
2,000 years
por más de 2,000 años.
with something new, and that's hard.
Y llevar el lugar a eso es mucho más.
Yes.
So, he has to follow
Okay,
up
okay, stop. Then we'll go through. He's going to follow up, and then we're going to do.
So,
But quickly.
Okay.
Sería,
So,
sería
it is important to say, when it comes to the link,
el capitalismo de la política.
is it difficult? Pregunta sobre.
No, pregunta.
Is it difficult to link capitalism and politics?
No, because capitalism is
No, porque el capitalismo
a political system. It's not just an economic system.
no es un sistema político.
Capitalism is the political system
Capitalismo es un sistema político.
in which all property is private
Toda la propiedad
and in which the government has no involvement in economic affairs.
tiene que la gobierno tiene ninguna
And its only job
el único trabajo
is to protect us
es solo proteger.
from force. To protect us from force.
Solo es que hagan la fuerza.
From criminals,
Los
from
criminales,
terrorists,
terroristas,
from foreign invaders.
de cualquier otro invasor.
But otherwise, leave us alone.
Pero el resto se nos deja ir.
Los mayores problemas sería
So one of the biggest problems would be
la persona correcta para liderar el país.
the right person to lead the country.
No. Who cares who leads the country?
No importa quién lo lidere.
The problem is that the people
El problema es la gente,
don't care about individual human flourishing.
que a la gente no le importe.
The people don't want capitalism.
La gente no quiere capitalismo, no le importa que lo
Once the people want capitalism, then it's not a problem to find a leader, because a leader under capitalism doesn't have a lot of power.
Porque el problema no es encontrar un líder, sino simplemente que la gente quiera el capitalismo. Una vez la gente encuentra quiere el capitalismo en su vida, cualquier líder va a servir. Cualquier líder los va a llevar para eso. El capitalismo funciona con o sin líder.
Okay, now we're going to take this question.
Cuando Estados Unidos se separó de Gran Bretaña, comenzó como un estado pequeño, lo más cercano que hemos tenido al nativo, por así decirlo.
Anyway, when the United States separated from the Great Name, the biggest thing that we had was
Estados Unidos comenzó con lo más cercano
the
que hemos
United States
tenido
started with something that was very similar
al minarquismo.
to minarchism.
Eh,
Minarchism.
al adoptar un estado pequeño,
to adopt a small state,
y a través de los años ha convertido en el tipo de estado que es ahora,
have become type of state it is now,
un estado netamente corporativista.
a corporative state.
No quiere decir
It
que
doesn't mean that
el minarquismo
minarchism
es una especie de semilla hacia el estatismo.
kind of a seed through esatism,
No funciona.
So what?
kind of a seed, S-E-E-D, through esatism. It's like a first stone. It's like a first
For corporatism.
for
For what? A seed for what?
What it's trying to
So you really want to say is what you said.
Well, yes,
Doesn't a small government always grow? That's what you want to ask?
Yeah.
En ese caso,
In that case,
para el capitalismo no es mejor lo que se conoce.
isn't it better for capitalism?
Not to have a government. I know where he's going. I've heard this question.
Ya se hace esa pregunta.
He's asking the anarcho-capitalist question.
Él está haciendo la pregunta de
Why didn't you just say so?
Entonces,
So the answer is,
Entonces la pregunta es,
no and no, I think.
no y no.
The problem with the founding of America
El problema con la fundación de los Estados Unidos
was that it was inconsistent.
fue que no era consistente, fue inconsistente.
It was like building a beautiful house
Fue como construir una hermosa casa
on quicksand.
en arena movedora.
It's going to sink,
Se va a hundir
and the house is going to be destroyed.
y la casa se va a destruir.
What is the quicksand?
¿Cuál es la arena movedora?
The quicksand. What is the beautiful house?
¿Cuál es la casa bonita?
The beautiful house is the political system,
La casa bonita es el sistema político,
which the founding fathers of America did a pretty good job establishing.
con los cuales los fundadores hicieron un muy buen trabajo.
Not perfect,
No perfecto,
but pretty good.
pero bueno.
But the quicksand is morality.
Pero el problema de la arena movediza es la moralidad.
The founding fathers were conventional when it came to morality.
Los padres de la patria estaban convencidos cuando se
They accepted Christian morality.
aceptaron y acogieron la moralidad cristiana.
They were explicit altruists.
Y fueron muy explícitos en el altruismo.
Thomas Jefferson admired the Sermon on the Mount.
Thomas Jefferson admiraba cuando fue
el sermón de la montaña, del monte de Jesucristo. El sermón de la montaña,
el sermón de la montaña.
de la Biblia.
And in my view, the Sermon on the Mount is socialism
Y si ustedes miran el sermón de la montaña, es socialismo,
because it's altruism.
porque es altruismo.
So they built a beautiful house of freedom on a morality of collectivism and altruism.
Entonces crearon una bonita casa llamada libertad en una base llamada moralidad.
So it was inevitable that it would sink.
Entonces era inevitable que se hundiera.
You could have predicted it.
Cualquiera lo pudo haber predicho.
What you need is a foundation.
Lo que necesitan es una buena base.
And that foundation, in my view,
Y esa fundación, en mi perspectiva,
is Rand's idea of rational egoism,
es la idea cruda del racionalismo egoísta.
of a rejection of altruism in favor of rational egoism. Now, I haven't finished because I haven't got your anarcho-capitalist part. Now, you've built, instead of quicksand, you've built a real foundation.
Entonces, mientras cuando ustedes rechazan la
Es-
idea del altruismo y solamente construyen,
And there's no reason in logic that it would sink.
y cuando la construyen simplemente pensando en el beneficio propio, lógicamente no se va a hundir.
So, in my view, proper capitalist government,
Entonces, en mi forma de pensar, un gobierno capitalista
limited by a proper constitution,
limitado por una constitución de propiedad,
based on a rational moral code,
basado en un código racional,
is sustainable forever
es siempre sostenible.
and will collapse only
Y solo va a colapsar si
when the people abandon that moral code.
la gente abandona ese código.
On the other hand,
Por otro lado,
anarcho-capitalism is nothing but suicide.
El anarcocapitalismo.
un anarcocapitalismo
El anarcocapitalismo.
es solamente un suicidio. Eso es un suicidio.
It is a war of everybody against everybody.
Es una guerra de todos contra todos.
It leads inevitably to the guy with the biggest gun taking over everything.
Y siempre, siempre va a terminar como que gana el chico o la persona con la pistola más grande que les va a ganar a todos.
And it is based on a very bad moral and epistemological basis,
Y está basado en un concepto moral epistemológico,
which is subjectivism.
en cuál es subjetivismo.
And of course, this is exactly why
Y por eso es que
the guy with the biggest gun is going to take over.
el tipo con la pistola más grande siempre va a
Because you
ganar.
can't argue against
¿Por qué
it.
no pueden pelear contra eso?
It's his values.
Son sus valores.
He wants to kill people.
Quiere matar gente.
He wants to control people.
Quiere controlarlos.
And subjectivism says that's legitimate.
Y como el subjetivismo lo dice, eso es legítimo.
All you can do to fight it is have a bigger gun than he does.
Lo único que tú puedes hacer para compartir eso es tener una pistola más grande.
And the result is war,
Y el resultado
war,
es
and war.
y guerra.
So you cannot have
Entonces no pueden tener.
overlapping police and legal systems on the same geographic area.
Entonces no pueden tener sistemas políticos que se van subiendo uno tras otro, que se sobreponen.
If you want competition,
Si quieren competencia,
that's great.
good, bien.
Every country can have, every geographic area can have its own legal political system.
Cada país puede tener su propia limitación y regulación.
Let's see who wins.
Miramos quién gana.
Now, I already know who wins.
O quién ya gana.
The capitalist objectivists win.
El objetivo capitalismo ya ganó.
This is the thing we're talking in the context. You say that anarcho-capitalism will lead us to
Usted dice que el capitalismo nos
a war situation.
a una saturación.
And the only way to provide peace and provide prosperity is about the objectivist capitalism.
It's about what? It's about-
Capitalist objective, yes. But
Pero
the right to choose,
ya, el derecho de escoger,
the right to choose your big gun guy. The government is the guy with the big gun.
pero no tiene derecho de escoger a la persona con la pistola más grande. Ese es el derecho del gobierno.
Yeah, but this is the difference.
Pero es una diferencia.
A proper government is not ruled by subjective whim.
Un gobierno auténtico no está liderado por...
It's ruled by the rule of objective law.
Está siempre mandado por la regla de la objetividad.
Sure, some maniac, yes, can come to power and take over the big gun.
Cualquier loco puede llegar y escoger la pistola.
But even in America, that hasn't happened.
Pero incluso en Estados Unidos eso no ha ocurrido.
Because they built a system of controls to make it not happen.
Porque hay un sistema de control que no deja que eso ocurra.
And they didn't do a perfect job.
Y no hicieron un trabajo perfecto.
With the knowledge we have today, we can do much better.
Con lo que sabemos ahora podemos llegar mucho más alto.
But at the end of the day, no system can survive
Pero al final del día ningún sistema puede sobrevivir
if the philosophy of the people is the opposite
si la filosofía de la gente es lo opuesto
of what the government is.
a lo que es el gobierno.
But you see, the whole point in anarcho-capitalism
Pero veo que tienen un punto en el campo.
is there is no philosophy of the people. Is that there is no philosophy of the people.
Que no es la filosofía de la gente.
Because you are subjectivists.
Porque todos son positivistas.
So everybody can have their own philosophy.
Entonces todos pueden tener,
Do what the hell they want.
todos pueden hacer lo que quieran.
Which exactly is what leads to war against everybody.
Y al final todos se vienen peleando contra todos mismos. Question? Pregunta o comentario. Question. Ya, depende de cómo la pregunta o la...
We're working in the translator very hard.
Usted dice que
You say that
la moralidad y la filosofía
philosophy and morality
son enemigos del sistema capitalista.
are enemies of the capitalist system.
No, I didn't say that.
Lo dije.
Bueno, muchos economistas austriacos
Many Austrian
Austrian economists,
Yeah.
yes.
son kantianos o cristianos.
are either Kantians or Christians.
Yeah,
No comparten la filosofía de Ayn Rand,
They don't share the philosophy of Ayn.
that's right.
pero llegan a conclusiones parecidas en lo económico a lo que usted dice.
But they come to very similar conclusions to what you said.
Yes.
Entonces, pues no creo que la moralidad
So I don't believe
que
morality
siguen estas personas y su filosofía
that these people follow their philosophy
sea contrario
is contrary
al sistema capitalista, ¿no? Sino
to the capitalist system.
ellos piensan de esa manera por los racionamientos económicos que tienen.
But they think that way because of the economic regime they have.
Y pues al mirarlos a ellos creo que eso es independiente,
So by having a look at it, that's
de que
independent,
sean objetivistas o
whether they are objectives or not.
People have an incredible ability
La gente tiene una habilidad increíble.
to hold contradictions in their mind.
La gente tiene una gran habilidad para siempre estar en contra de lo que siempre piensa.
You cannot be a consistent Kantian and a consistent capitalist.
No puede ser un
Kantiano.
kantiano consistente y un capitalista consistente. O lo uno o lo otro.
It is a contradiction.
Es una contradicción.
Now, some people can live contradictions,
Y la gente puede vivir contradicciones toda su vida.
but you don't win on contradiction.
Pero usted no gana con contradicciones.
Contradictions will kill you in the end.
La contradicción te va a matar.
And the same is true,
Y lo que
and I don't want to offend anybody here, but the same is true of religion
con la religión
and capitalism.
y el capitalismo.
They're incompatible.
No son compatibles.
The essence of capitalism is the sovereignty of the individual over his life.
La principal fundamento del capitalismo es el amor de uno hacia sí mismo, su deseo egoísta y su propia vida.
The essence of religion is the sovereignty of God.
Es la solvencia hacia Dios.
It's not your life, it's his life.
No es mi vida, es la vida de Dios.
You are his servant.
Yo soy su sirviente.
They're not the same thing.
No es lo mismo.
They're a contradiction.
Completamente contradictorio.
Now again, you can be a great economist
Puede ser un grandioso
and
economista
hold that contradiction.
y tener esa contradicción.
But at the end of the day, you're not going to change the world if you hold that
Pero al
contradiction.
final del día no va a cambiar nada si sigue así.
Contradictions do not win,
La contradicción nunca gana.
not in the long run.
No al final del camino.
And it's not completely honest to hold those contradictions.
Y no es honesto mantener esa contradicción.
So it's our responsibility, I believe, particularly when you're young,
Yo creo, somos jóvenes,
to be consistent,
de ser consistentes,
to find a consistent philosophy,
encontrar una filosofía.
not to pick and choose the things that you feel like doing.
No escoger de lo que
I
creo.
shocked them so badly that they walked out and now they're coming back because they're intrigued. I'm sorry. I had to come. Hi, you can come in. I'm not offended if you walk out and come in and walk out.
Pensar,
So I'm curious, if you don't mind, what was so shocking about what I said about God? Because you were clearly really.
¿qué es lo que pasa que te
Well, I understand
chocaba?
what like the capitalism because soy when people do what we have said. Right?
No, it's exactly the opposite. Capitalism. Yes, the
Lo que yo
translate.
escuché fue que cuando el capitalismo funciona cuando una persona le hace caso a lo que el líder dice.
Like what the government.
O lo que el gobierno dice.
Yes, go ahead. So capitalism is the opposite. Capitalism is a system where the leader has no power over the people.
Cuando el líder no tiene ningún poder sobre
Where people are free to do what they actually want.
cuando la gente tiene que hacer porque realmente
Because it's a system where the government doesn't regulate,
porque es un sistema donde el gobierno no
doesn't tell you how to dress, doesn't tell you what to smoke, doesn't tell you what products to buy or what products to consume or produce.
no te dice cómo vestirte, ni cómo fumar, ni qué vas a hacer, nada.
Doesn't tell you how to run your business.
Really? ¿De verdad? ¿En serio?
If you actually study what capitalism really means, absolutely. Capitalism is a system which leaves individuals free of coercion, free of force, and where people engage with one another voluntarily. That's what it is. Give me an example of capitalism where everybody follows the leader.
Dime un ejemplo de capitalismo donde todos sigan libres.
Consumism, like the pay now, the pay of.
Communism?
Consumism.
Consumerism. So consumerism is not the base of capitalism. That's nonsense. Consumerism is a feature of capitalism.
El consumo es una característica del capitalismo.
And consumerism is great.
Y el consumismo es bueno.
Do you have an iPhone?
¿Tienes un teléfono celular?
No,
Do you have a phone?
¿Tienes un teléfono?
You don't have a phone?
¿Tienes un teléfono?
yes, but I.
No, with it. You don't use it anymore. Do you have a shirt? How'd you get? Did you make it yourself? No, see. Did you build the house you live in? Did you make the sneakers? So you're part of the consumer world, and my suspicion is that you enjoy it because your sneakers are kind of pink, and you probably like pink sneakers, and the consumer world has produced pink sneakers just for you. Isn't that cool? But the essence of capitalism is that you can live your life without a phone, with pink sneakers, making your own clothes, and nobody can stop you from doing that. I, on the other hand, don't want pink sneakers. I don't want to make my own clothes. I want to buy clothes that are made wherever, right? You get to choose what you get to choose, and I get to choose what I get to choose. It's about choice. It's about freedom. It's about every individual living their own life the way they see fit. You don't like the way I live my life? Great, don't live my life. But you see, the problem is that every other system other than capitalism, when you decide you don't like my life, you want to force your life onto me. Because the essence of every other political system other than capitalism is that some group forces their opinions on other groups. Capitalism is about everybody living the way they want. You want to live in a tree, live in a tree. I know some people that broke trees, live in a tree. None of my business. As long as it's on my tree.
Traductor.
It's kind of interesting. You should sit and listen. What's that? You see, that's who we need to be talking to. I mean, that's internal debate here about anarcho-capitalism is...
Three questions.
Okay, go ahead, you choose, I don't know.
Ya. La primera es...
First one.
Si ser egoísta no es malo,
If being self-interested is not bad,
¿cómo puede dejar de llamarse egoísta?
how can if being self-interested
Yeah.
is being bad, how can we stop it from making it seem like a bad thing?
So is this a question about perception?
Más que todo sobre perspectivas, porque la percepción.
I can answer your question. En Venezuela, I will answer in Spanish.
En español hablo en español.
Yes. Lo que pasa es que la palabra egoísmo como tal en español tiene un significado muy marcado por la Real Academia. Entonces nosotros ya lo vamos a ver como algo malo, como el interés propio por encima de los demás, porque así es como lo definen. Sin embargo, la palabra en inglés, por ejemplo, tiene una definición más amplia, que es self-interest, interés propio. En un momento la palabra en inglés es la que está, por la que ellos definieron todo su sistema objetivo ético-moral. No implica lo que implica para nosotros en español. Y eso es quizás el mayor conflicto.
No, that's not true.
¿No?
It's not true.
No es tan correcto como lo que dices.
Egoism, self-interest, and selfishness are all considered bad words in English.
Las tres también son palabras.
And in Spanish, and in Greek,
cualquier idioma.
everywhere except I think in Chinese. But you know, all these languages it's considered
En
bad.
todo se considera malo.
That doesn't mean it's bad.
Eso no significa que se consideren malas, sean malas.
What egoism means is placing your own well-being first.
Lo que ego hace es colocarte aquí primero sobre todo.
And what I'm saying, what Aristotle said, what Ayn Rand says, is that's good. To place your own well-being first is good. Now the question is, and this is what morality should be about, if anybody studied it seriously.
Y es así como Aristóteles y los demás dijeron que colocarme a mí primero es lo que importa. Si realmente estudias la moralidad, lo que
is what does it mean to put yourself first?
es qué significa para mí colocarme como primero.
What kind of actions
¿Qué
are
acciones,
implied by putting oneself
qué
first?
acciones implican hacer eso?
So for example,
Por ejemplo,
is lying, cheating, and stealing
es mentir, engañar y robar.
consistent with putting yourself first? Because we're all against lying, cheating, and stealing.
Es robar, mentir y engañar consistente con ponerse tú mismo primero.
And Ayn Rand says,
Y Rand says,
and I believe that Aristotle would say,
creo
but I'm
que
not an
Aristóteles
expert,
lo dice cuando
that it's not in your self-interest to lie, steal, and cheat.
Cuando dice que no es de tu propio interés o de tu propia forma de ser, mentir, engañar o robar.
Because it doesn't make your life better.
Porque no hace que tu vida sea mala.
It doesn't lead to happiness.
No te lleva simplemente a la felicidad.
It's the opposite. It leads to self-destruction.
Te lleva simplemente a la autodestrucción.
And that's an objective truth. That's not whatever you feel like it being.
Y esa es una verdad objetiva, no es como te sientes.
That was an attack on subjective.
Es una verdad
If you lie,
si tú mientes,
bad things happen.
cosas malas pasan.
Even if you wish they wouldn't.
Incluso aunque lo desees, que no pasen.
Reality, human beings have a particular nature,
Los seres humanos tienen una naturaleza particular,
which requires us to be rational.
a lo que nos hace ser racionales.
Lying is anti-rational.
Mentir va contra el raciocinio.
Rationality requires facts.
La racionalidad necesita hechos.
Lying is the opposite of facts.
Mentir es el opuesto de un hecho.
There's a term in computers.
Se llama computador.
Garbage in, garbage out.
La basura entra, la basura sale.
So, to be self-interested, to be an egoist, to be selfish,
Para ser interesado
means to be rational,
necesito ser racional.
means not to lie.
Es no mentir.
I can tell you why stealing is bad for
Te
you.
puedo decir por qué robar es malo.
Because if you steal something, you have no sense of ownership of it.
Porque si te robas algo simplemente no
But it's
tienes
more than
con
that.
nosotros.
Stealing destroys
Robar destruye
your self-esteem.
tu propia autoestima.
You gain self-esteem by knowing that you can cope with reality using your reason.
Tú construyes autoestima sabiendo que puedes manejar la realidad con las cosas que tienes en tu entorno.
That you can survive in nature by your own faculties.
Que puedes sobrevivir en la naturaleza por tus propias facultades.
When you steal, you admit.
Cuando
Cuando
usted roba, usted reconoce
that you can't,
que no puede hacerlo,
that you're incompetent,
que eres incompetente,
that you depend on other people to produce and to create and to think so that you can survive.
que dependes de otra persona para producir, crear, que no puedes simplemente hacer lo que tú debes hacer para sobrevivir.
So initiating force
Entonces la fuerza iniciativa
or fraud, which is a type of force.
o fraud,
Which is a type of force.
fraud, lo cual es un tipo de fuerza.
Fraude.
Fraud es fraud.
Fraud.
F-R-A-U-D.
F-R-A-U-D.
Fraude.
F-R-A-U-D.
Sí, fraude.
Is never in yourself.
Nunca es. Pues la fuerza negativa es siempre va a ser el fraude. El fraude nunca va a ser en tu propio raciocinio y no va a ser la manera de ser. Es otro tipo de fuerza.
So then the question is,
Entonces la pregunta es,
what is in your self-interest?
¿qué es para ti eso? ¿Qué
It's
es
to be rational,
ser racional?
to apply your rationality to the problem of existence,
Aplicar tus problemas de la existencia,
which means to be productive,
lo que significa ser productivo,
which means to work to change your environment to fit your needs,
lo que significa cambiar tu alrededor para hacer que eso se ajuste a tus necesidades.
So the two primary virtues in objectivism
Entonces las dos principales virtudes de lo que
are rationality and
son
productiveness.
racionalidad y productividad.
And from productiveness we get self-esteem,
Y de la productividad tenemos autoestima,
because when we produce, we provide evidence to ourselves that we are capable of taking care of ourselves in reality,
porque cuando producimos somos capaces de producir evidencia, producimos de
Gives us-
producir y crear.
which gives us confidence and
Nos da
self-assuredness,
confianza y nos da seguridad propia,
which are necessary for happiness.
lo que es necesario para ser feliz.
Now, in addition to that, one should be honest,
Debemos ser honestos,
again, because facts are facts.
porque los hechos son los hechos.
One should have integrity,
Debemos ser integros,
because what's the point of having values and not living up to them?
porque tenemos valores y debemos vivir con ellos.
One should be independent,
Debemos ser independientes,
because nobody else can think for you, only you can think.
porque nadie puede pensar por ti. Solo
Your
tú.
mind is your tool for your survival.
Tu mente, tu forma de ser, tu propia supervivencia.
You're defaulting on your mind when you let other people think for you.
Tú estás creando en tu propia mente lo que las otras gentes quieren que piensen de ti.
Therefore, you're acting immorally and irrationally.
Por eso, actuando,
You're acting immorally and irrationally.
sí, actuando inmoralmente e irracionalmente.
So what have I missed?
Entonces, ¿qué ¿Qué me cambia?
Rationality,
Racionalidad,
productiveness, honesty,
probabilidad,
integrity,
honestidad,
independence.
independencia.
Somebody help me.
¿Alguien me ayuda?
Self-esteem, now. We talked about self-esteem.
Autoestima.
I mean, there's one that I remember, but there's another one I forgot. Anyway, pride. What's that?
Pride.
What did you say?
Pride. Pride.
Pride.
Orgullo.
So to get self-esteem,
Para tener orgullo,
it's not enough to accomplish. It's not enough to produce, to create.
no solamente es crear y construir.
You have to be able to acknowledge that you created.
Tienes que ser capaz de darte cuenta de que construiste.
To paraphrase President Obama,
Para frasar al presidente Obama,
I did build that.
yo sí construí esto.
That's it. Pride is really a commitment to excellence.
El orgullo realmente es un compromiso con la excelencia.
More than anything, pride is a commitment to moral excellence.
Más que eso es un compromiso con la excelencia moral.
Aristotle called pride the queen of the virtues.
Aristóteles nombró a la moral la reina de la virtud.
It's your internal commitment. I know which one I forgot. It's your internal commitment to being the best that you can be.
Está en tu propio interés y comprometer a ti mismo que yo puedo ser lo mejor que puedo ser.
Now, the seventh virtue that I
La séptima
forgot
virtud que se me olvidó.
is justice.
Justicia.
Justice is treating people the way they deserve.
Justicia es tratar a la gente de la manera que ellos se lo merecen.
It does not mean equality.
No es cuando hacer que no tener calidad.
Equality is unjust.
No es solamente ser igual. Ser igual, ser equal, ser
Igualdad.
ser par, no es ser justo.
It's unjust, it's immoral, it's evil.
Es inmoral ser par. Es malo ser par.
Justice means treating people the way they deserve.
La justicia es tratar a la gente de la manera que se lo merecen.
Justice means treating people based on the value they provide to you.
La justicia es tratar a la gente dependiendo del valor o de las cosas que te dan a ti, que te producen a ti.
Justice demands that you say thank you to Bill Gates.
La justicia es que le digas gracias, Bill Gates.
Because your life is that much better because of Bill Gates.
Porque mi vida es así de mejor gracias a Bill Gates.
Not that you envy or hate him,
No que lo envidies o lo
but the
odies.
opposite, that you love him and admire him and thank him.
Que le agradezcas, lo admires. y lo
Because he
ames.
made your life better.
Porque él hizo tu vida mejor.
So that's the essence of what egoism means.
Eso es realmente lo que se refiere como egoísmo. So do we thank him with money?
What's that?
He says, so do we thank him with money?
No, you've already thanked him with money, right? Because you bought his products.
Compraste sus productos.
But I don't think everything's about money in life. I'll get to you. I don't think everything's about money in
Todo
life.
es dinero.
I'll give you an example. You might have had a great teacher
Debes ser un profesor. De pronto has tenido un muy buen profesor.
in grade school. I didn't, maybe you did, but some of you might have had.
Algún profesor
Who changed your life in some meaningful way.
que te cambió la vida de una manera muy positiva.
I think the just thing to do
Creo que la cosa más justa para hacer
when you're successful in life
es cuando seas más exitoso.
is to go back and thank them.
Es ir, devolverte y decirle gracias.
A simple thank you
Un gracias
is an unbelievable act of justice
es el hecho más justo que increíblemente van a hacer.
and is more valuable to Bill Gates than dollars.
Y es mucho más valioso para mí.
He has more than he could ever use.
Le sirve más de cualquier cosa que pueda hacer. Bueno, ya. Pregunta, segunda.
Entonces, quien tiene el poder de cambiar la moralidad es el hombre.
The power of morality is man. The one who has power to change morality is man.
Yeah, the person who determines
Determina
his own morality
su propia moralidad.
and acts on it is man, is the individual man. You have to choose your morality
Tú escoges tu moralidad
and you have to live it.
y tienes que vivir con ella.
There is no power that judges you
Poder que te juzgue.
other than you
Más que el tuyo
and reality.
y el de la realidad. Tercera.
Y
And
la-
reality
la
exists
última
in
es,
spite of the subjective view that
La
it
realidad, a
has.
pesar de la subjetividad en la que podamos vivir. Tercera pregunta. Third
La
question.
última es, ¿la ética construye al capitalismo o el capitalismo construye la ética?
Okay. Does ethics construct capitalism or is capitalism constructed by ethics?
Well, you said the same thing twice.
Is ethics constructed by capitalism, or capitalism constructed by ethics?
Okay. Ethics comes first.
La ética viene primero.
And in that sense, it's more fundamental.
Y en ese punto es más
And
fundamental.
it's more important.
Y es más importante.
The fact is, we don't live under capitalism.
El hecho es que nosotros no vivimos en capitalismo.
None of us will probably ever live under capitalism.
Ninguno de nosotros probablemente vive en capitalismo.
Let's be real.
Seamos realistas.
You can still live a moral life.
Podemos vivir una vida similar.
You can still be happy.
Pueden ser felices.
You can still attain many values.
Pueden tener muchos valores.
In that sense, morality is much more important to your life than capitalism.
En ese punto la moralidad es mucho más importante.
Now, when people try to create capitalism without morality,
Sin moral.
and this relates to some of the questions we got before.
Y eso se trata de la pregunta como la que hicieron anteriormente.
For example, the founding fathers who were capitalists but had the wrong morality,
Por ejemplo, cuando los padres de la patria tenían la inmoralidad incorrecta,
capitalism didn't survive.
el capitalismo no sobrevivió.
And even when it was around, it wasn't consistent.
E incluso estando entre ellos no era consistente.
If the religious and Kantian libertarians
Sí, la libertad religiosa
ever gain power somehow
alguna vez ganase el poder
and impose capitalism on all of us,
y impusiera el capitalismo en todos nosotros,
it won't survive.
no sobreviviría.
And it'll sink itself.
Y él mismo se hundiría.
And there's a reason, for example, why Mises, you know the story of Mises?
¿Cuál es la historia de Mises?
He was once asked,
Que le preguntaron una vez,
what would the first thing you do if you became dictator of the world?
¿qué sea lo primero que harías si te volvieras dictador del mundo?
You could do anything.
Podías hacer lo que quisieras.
What do you think he said?
¿Qué crees que dijo?
You can do anything.
Bueno,
First thing you do,
¿qué sea lo primero que harías?
dictator of the world.
¿Qué?
Resign.
Renunciar.
Because you can't achieve anything
Si no puedes lograr nada,
through imposition. Anyway,
no puedes hacer nada cogiendo las cosas.
that answer the question?
¿Responde tu pregunta? Okay, question. Question? Sorry, I was waiting.
Okay.
Sí. En el ejemplo de la casa y la arena movediza.
En el ejemplo de in the example of house and
Quicksand, yes.
La arena movediza
quicksand
era la moralidad incorrecta.
was the incorrect morality.
Yes.
Entonces,
So,
si
if
el hombre
the man
es un ser moral,
is a moral being,
¿no es mejor decir
isn't it better to say
que el problema
that the problem is
no es la moralidad,
not the moral but
sino el hombre?
the man?
No.
No.
Morality is an achievement.
La moralidad es un logro.
Morality has to be discovered.
La moralidad tiene que ser descubierta,
It has to be learned.
tiene que ser buscada.
Morality is a field of study.
La moralidad es un campo de estudio.
We are not born with an innate morality.
No nacemos con una moralidad.
We don't have moral genes.
No tenemos genes de la moralidad.
We have to learn it.
Tenemos que aprenderlos.
And if we learn the wrong
Si
morality,
aprendemos la moralidad,
then yeah, it's our fault to some extent.
pues sí, es nuestra culpa en cierto punto.
But it doesn't mean we can't change and learn the right morality.
Podemos cambiar y tener la moralidad
And
correcta.
the fact is that the wrong morality
Y el hecho es que la moralidad
has been imposed on us by
se
force
nos ha estado viendo por la fuerza
since the birth of Christianity,
desde que nació el cristianismo.
or at least since Christianity gained political power.
O al menos desde que el cristianismo ganó poder político.
So what choices did they have?
Entonces, ¿qué opciones tenemos? ¿Qué opciones tienen ellos?
But more importantly than that,
Más importante que eso,
to figure out morality is hard.
descifrar la moralidad es muy difícil.
This is what philosophers should be doing.
Eso es lo que los filósofos deberían estar haciendo.
And the first philosopher, in my opinion,
Y el primer filósofo, en mi opinión,
to get it right
que lo pudo entender bien,
was Ayn Rand.
pues fue Ayn Rand.
And it took
Y me tomó
over 2,000 years
2000 años
from Aristotle to Ayn Rand,
de Aristóteles a
without
Ayn
a
Rand.
single moral thinker in between focused on individualistic morality.
Sí, sí, le tomó 2000 años desde Aristóteles hasta Rand sin que nadie en esos 2000 años se tuviera el momento para pensar en ese punto de la moralidad.
So I don't blame people during that 2,500 years for the fact that they didn't have the right
El
morality.
hecho de que no tuviera la moralidad correcta.
It took a genius to discover what it
Le
was.
tomó un genio fue el que se dedicó a descubrir qué era.
The challenge is now that we have it,
Los retos que tenemos ahora,
now that that morality has been articulated,
nada de que la moralidad ha sido articulada,
will people adopt it?
es que la gente la adopte.
Now there are no excuses.
Ahora no hay excusas.
It's right there in front of you.
Está ahí al frente tuyo.
It's your life.
Es tu vida. Okay. Yes. 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 Voy así.
What time do we have to leave? Just so.
¿A qué hora se
No, I'm fine. I just want to make sure I make my plane. We have to collect the bag and everything. So can you just make sure that we stop at time?
Okay.
Yeah.
Pregunta, question. I understand that Mr. Brook is, that you are writing now, that you're writing now a book in an answer to the Master book.
Yes.
Yes. See, I would like to ask you, like in a briefing, in this huge book. So far, I understand he has a very low opinion about medical practice. He wants to think about it.
So a sneak preview of my book. My book is still very much in draft form. It's with my same co-author, Don Watkins, that I wrote my previous book. It'll be out sometime next year, probably early next year. And it's going to be my answer to Piketty. So it's going to be on inequality. And the problem is, there's a lot to say. But let me say this. Piketty's book is complete nonsense. Yes, from beginning to end. The data is wrong.
Los datos están mal.
The economic theory is wrong.
La teoría económica está mal.
And of course the moral assumptions are wrong.
Y por supuesto, muchas asunciones.
And the book is going to deal with some of the data,
algunos de los datos,
some of the economics, and definitely with the morality implied.
Y definitivamente con la moralidad.
But let me give you a few examples. According to Piketty, and according to anybody who does inequality economics, when I buy an iPhone, inequality increases.
La inequalidad crece.
Apple gets richer by $300. I get poorer by $300. But that's stupid. Because I got an iPhone. I'm happy to give up $300 to get an iPhone. My life is better for having an iPhone. I'll give you even a better example. If I were rich, if I had enough money, and I went and bought a Renoir painting for $20 million, I would be poorer by $20 million. According to the inequality concept. But the reason I bought the painting for $20 million is because the value of that painting to my life is more than $20 million. So my life is richer for having bought the painting. So what difference does it make if I'm poorer financially, if I'm richer spiritually?
Entonces, ¿cuál diferencia hay si yo soy más pobre financieramente, pero más rico espiritualmente?
So the whole approach to inequality is ridiculous.
El solo enfoque de inequalidad es estúpido, es ridículo.
Because it evades the idea
Evade la idea
that trade is a win-win.
de que el cambio es una ganancia para las partes.
That both parties gain when you transact.
De que ambas partes ganan cuando hacen una transacción.
And built into it, right in the beginning, Piketty
Y cuando lo hizo Piketty al principio,
says, look, inequality is bad in and of itself.
la que dice que la inequalidad es mala por sí.
And my answer to that is why?
Mi pregunta para ustedes, ¿por qué?
Inequality is beautiful.
La inequalidad es hermosa.
Inequality is wonderful.
La inequalidad es maravillosa.
Bill Gates is richer than me because he produced more than I did.
Bill Gates es más rico que yo porque produce más de lo que yo hago.
And the only way you can become as rich as he
Y
is
la única forma en la que se puede
is
ser
by
rico como él
making my life and your life better.
es haciendo mi vida y su vida mejor que la que ya tenemos.
So I clap every time somebody becomes a billionaire.
Entonces yo aplaudo cada vez que alguien sea millonario.
It's great
Es bueno ser
because it
millonario
means they produced values that made our life better.
porque significa que hace algo que hace mi vida mucho mejor.
It's not an issue of how much I make relative to somebody else.
No es un asunto de cuánto yo hago comparado con otra persona.
It's an issue of am I making as much as I can, not just financially, but in terms of my life.
Estoy haciendo todo lo que yo puedo o más de lo que yo puedo, no solamente financieramente.
And when somebody else makes a lot of money, they're making it justly, or they're stealing it.
Y cuando alguien hace más dinero, ¿lo hace justamente o se lo está robando?
So in a free market, there'd be lots of inequality,
Entonces en un mercado libre hay miles de
and
inequalidades
we would all be very happy about it.
y todos seríamos muy felices.
And let me make this point, because I think it's an interesting point here.
Déjame hablarles de esto que es muy importante.
Let's bring back morality.
Traigamos esa moralidad.
If you believe in the moral code that says sacrifice is virtuous,
Si creen que si ustedes creen que en el código moral de que la católica,
selflessness is good.
de que
Selflessness is good.
evitarse a sí mismo de ser altruismo es bueno.
Yeah, that altruism is good. So then, if somebody gets rich and I'm
Si
poor,
ser rico y yo pobre,
then I look at him and say,
entonces yo me digo,
your moral responsibility,
es tu responsabilidad
your
moral,
moral duty
es tu deber moral,
is to help me,
es ayudarme a mí.
because you should be sacrificing for
Porque tú
me.
deberías sacrificarte.
My need is a claim against you.
Es contigo.
You're evil for not helping me and all the poor people in the world, right?
Eres malo por no ayudar a toda la gente del mundo.
How dare you keep so much money?
¿Cómo se atreve a tener tanto dinero?
So altruism creates envy.
Entonces,
Altruism creates resentment of success.
el altruismo crea envidia, el altruismo crea
Resentment of success.
resentimiento por el éxito,
It creates conflict between human beings.
crea conflicto entre los seres humanos.
But if I'm an egoist
Pero si yo soy un egoísta
and somebody makes a lot of money,
y alguien hace mucho dinero,
I don't even care.
a mí no me importa.
Because it's my life I care about, not his.
Porque mi vida la que me importa, no la de
What he
él.
does with his life is not my business.
Lo que hace con su vida es su problema.
The only thing that I care about
Lo único que me importa
is
es,
if he made it honestly,
si lo hizo honestamente,
then I want to say thank you
entonces yo digo gracias,
as an egoist.
como egoísta.
Because I benefited from the fact that he made a lot of
Yo
money.
me beneficié por el hecho de que él haya.
So morality of egoism leads to harmony among people.
Entonces la cantidad de egos hace armonía entre la gente.
A morality of altruism leads to hatred among people.
Una moralidad de altruismo solamente crea odio entre las personas.
The more altruism in the culture, the more conflict in the culture.
Entre más altruismo, más conflicto en la sociedad.
The more egoism in the culture, the more harmony in the culture.
Entre más egoísmo, más armonía entre la sociedad.
Objectivism,
El objetivismo
or the morality of egoism,
de la moralidad del egoísmo
is a philosophy of love.
es una filosofía del amor.
Because we love life,
Porque amamos la vida,
we love ourselves.
nos amamos a nosotros
And when
mismos.
you love yourself, you love other people who
Porque cuando nos amamos
contribute to
mismos,
your
amo a los
life.
demás y creo en los demás.
There's nothing more selfish in life than love.
No hay nada más egoísta en la vida que el amor.
You love somebody who makes you feel good.
Cuando tú amas a alguien te hace sentir bien.
Love is not about sacrifice.
El amor no es el sacrificio.
Love is not about selflessness.
El amor no es solo de ser desprendido.
Love is about enjoying mutual values.
El amor es tener.
It's about enjoying each other. It's about bringing each other pleasure.
Darle placer al otro.
So love is selfish.
Entonces el amor es egoísta.
And if you don't believe me, think about this.
Y si no lo creen,
Imagine on the day of your wedding,
imagínense el día de su boda.
you go up to your spouse
Para de su esposa
and you say to them,
y le dice a ella,
this is a sacrifice.
eso es un sacrificio.
I'm not getting anything out of this
No
relationship.
estoy recibiendo nada de esa relación.
Right? That's stupid.
Es estúpido.
The reason you're marrying him is because you're getting a lot out of the
La
relationship.
razón por la que te casas es porque está recibiendo mucho.
Love is about values. Love is about selfish values.
El amor es acerca de los valores, de los valores de tu mismo.
So remember, objectivism is the philosophy of love. Ayn Rand's rolling in a grave. Objectivism is the philosophy of love.
El objetivismo es la filosofía del amor. Okay? Question? Question? No, let's see that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Sí, sí.
In what? I'm sorry. What is the key for thriving? To be successful, you mean? What is the key to being successful in life? For thriving. Everybody understand? The key is... What is the key to having a thriving, successful life? Yes. Reason. Thinking. Using your mind. It's applying your mind to the problems that you face. It's not to deny your emotions, but not to let your emotions rule your decision making. You live through your emotions. You experience life through your emotions. So I like emotional people. But you don't make decisions based on it. So thriving comes from applying your mind to the problems that you face and to your own future. I was speaking at a business school yesterday. One of the things I told the students was, you all learn how to do a business plan. And you do it really, really well. What I would encourage you is to have a life plan. That is, think about what you want to do in life. Plan it. Now, plans change. It doesn't mean you're always going to. Plans will change. But what do you want to do about in life? And how do you get there? And use your mind to guide it. One last one, and then because he's been waiting patiently.
Entonces, la idea de uno mismo sea egoísta en el sentido de que piense a progresar yo mismo, no esperando que las otras personas me den para progresar. Sería excelente. Es perfecto, no tiene nada que
So I think that the idea of being selfless and just being individual and egoistic is very good. Not expecting anybody to come to me to get a fence.
El problema está en que
the problem is that
camino que quieres hacer para
that is how you want to take.
No, la idea es no esperar que las otras personas
the idea is to wait for some people to come to you and help you.
No importa la otra persona.
Do not care about the other people.
Pero el problema es que cuando tú empiezas a crear tu nuevo camino, puedes hacer daño, puedes hacer.
I get it. Now he says that he agrees when you say that it's okay not to wait for people or not to let them can wait for something for your life. But he is wondering, how can you go and follow and construct a path without hurting other people in that process? But by being selfish.
I don't know why you would ever hurt anybody.
No entiendo usted cómo le haría daño a alguien.
It's in terms of physical hurt. Because lying, stealing, cheating is bad for you.
Porque mentir, engañar y robar es algo así.
And let me also say, I just said objectivism is the philosophy of love. Love of people. I love people. Good people. Productive people. Rational people. So you want friends. You want people to associate with and work in play, in sports or whatever. So relationships are crucial to an egoist life. Egoism doesn't mean going in the forest and living alone. It means finding healthy, productive relationships that benefit you. And benefit the other side. Because the fundamental way in which we should interact is based on justice and trade. So, win-win.